Welcome, Irish Breakdown listeners. This is the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour coming to you live on a Monday with my man Sean Davis, recruiting analyst here at irishbreakdown.com. Of course, I am Ryan Roberts, the director of recruiting here on the site. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We have a really fun show. If you join us for any of our recruiting hours from the past, you know at some point we'll be talking about some of the Notre Dame commits in action. We'll hit that today. We'll also talk a little bit about the recruiting reactions to this past weekend's Shamrock Series victory over the BYU Cougars, big 28-20 victory that honestly should have been a lot more if we're being completely honest. And of course, we'll also preview a little bit Stanford this weekend. Big home game. The recruiting list is beginning to expand. You should expect guys on campus like Jeremiah Love, 2023 running back, Brandon Hillman, 2023 athlete out of the state of Virginia, Ryan Wingo, 2024 five-star wide receiver out of the St. Louis area, is also going to be in attendance. So we have a star-studded show for you today. Going to talk a lot of Notre Dame football. If you missed us last night, me and Brian were supposed to do the Beyond Further Review show Sunday night. Unfortunately, we just got the film this morning. So we're going to be breaking down the coach's film for the rest of the day after we get off the podcast. And me and Brian Driscoll will be live tonight around 7 or 8 o'clock. I forget which one it is, but that's why you should keep it kind of your eyes peeled to us on Twitter. Also sign up at boards.irishbreakdown.com. If you want to follow along with we had our initial reactions after the game, Sean, but now we're going to give a little more in-depth. Offensively, defensively, what are some of the things we saw? And then we're going to move, starting tomorrow, onto the Stanford Cardinal, which will be a big game. But if you all have looked at the title of today's show, we have a very special guest on today, Sean. This is a really fun one, man, because I had the opportunity to talk a little bit over Twitter to Bertrand Berry a couple days ago, man. And I was honestly, like, we were just talking before the show a little bit. I felt like I was a kid in the candy store for a second, man, because I'm like, I remember Bertrand, like 14 and a half sacks, I think, in 2004 for the Arizona Cardinals. I remember him as just this phenomenal player. And of course, he was, you know, at the tail end of the Lou Holtz era as well. So he experienced the best of Notre Dame football. He experienced a long, great 12-year career in the NFL. And I'm just excited to get him on, man. We're going to talk. So this is kind of what we're doing here, right? I'm starting a series that's called Recruits of the Past, where I'm going to kind of talk about some of past Notre Dame legends and greats, talk to them about their recruiting process, what it was like for them, visit structures, who they were interested in, why it was Notre Dame, all that good stuff. And we're going to kind of compare and contrast it to what it was then to what it's like now, because we know the recruiting world has seriously changed over the last couple of years, specifically, especially. So going to get Bertrand's perspective, going to kind of talk about how it compares to today, how it's a lot different than today. And of course, we're coming off a big victory, so I might start us off by just talking Notre Dame football here for a couple of seconds. So what a welcome to Notre Dame and IB Nation, Mr. Bertrand Berry, again, 12-year NFL veteran, Pro Bowler for the Arizona Cardinals. Bertrand, again, man, and Notre Dame legend. Can't forget that. You're on a Notre Dame channel. Appreciate you, brother, for coming on today. We're really excited to have you.
I appreciate you guys having me, man. This is fun.
Yeah. Oh, man. So every Notre Dame fan, if you remember Bertrand, start throwing it in the chat. Hit that like button. Obviously, great player from 1993 to 1996 for Notre Dame. You were obviously then drafted in the third round by the Indianapolis Colts, and you spent, again, 12 years in the NFL, Bertrand. So I guess my first and foremost conversation, man, is before we get into the recruiting background and all that good stuff from back in the day, talk to me a little bit about the state of Notre Dame football right now, man. I know before we started, you were talking about, you know, big victory over BYU, Marcus Freeman's first win over a ranked opponent during his tenure so far. Just how excited are you for this next era of Notre Dame football?
I'm extremely excited, and I look at what he's able to do, and Coach Freeman is a very unique type of coach in that we hadn't seen a coach like that at Notre Dame, a guy that's young, a guy that's energetic, and a guy that brings a lot of enthusiasm that can really relate to the players because he's a lot closer to them in age-wise. So I think for the players that are coming in, they see Coach Freeman, and they say to themselves, okay, this is a guy that's a lot like me. He kind of likes some of the things that I like. Yes, he's older, but he's still young enough to be able to relate to how I talk, how I wear my clothes. And he was a player in college, so he understands the grind that it is to be a student athlete, if you will. I say that loosely these days, but the fact that he has worn those shoes that the current players wear now, I think that goes a long way in their interest in playing for Marcus Freeman.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's really well said. I mean, the relatability, kind of the aura that Coach Freeman has around him, it's just such an attractive viewpoint right now, which I'm excited to see how it continues to trend. Because like we said, we just got the first ranked win under the Marcus Freeman era. Exciting times, obviously, Bertram. But I want to take you back now to the to recruiting background a little bit, man. I know you're a Texas guy originally. So for people that don't know, that didn't follow you maybe or didn't see you play at Notre Dame, I think you played like almost exclusively linebacker, right? Like you weren't really an edge guy on the college level. And then obviously you transitioned to a great defensive end during your career in the NFL. So can you talk to me, Bertrand, just I guess briefly, man, because I'm really interested to hear your viewpoint of your recruiting process specifically. What was it like coming out of high school back then? How chaotic was it? And maybe just a little bit of some of the other teams aside from Notre Dame that were coming after you hard.
Well, the first thing about my recruiting experience is pretty unique because I was a high school running back. I didn't really play a lot of defense until I decided to go to school. And I remember Coach Mentor, who was then the defensive coordinator, asking me, did you want to play? What side of the ball did you want to play on? And I said, well, it's better to give than to receive. So I think I'll go defense. And from then on, they recruited me as a defensive player and really ramped it up because I believe they saw a future for me as a defensive player. So that was the biggest thing, just getting used to having that mindset and the mentality of a defensive player for an entire season. And yes, I was primarily a linebacker my first couple of years. When I got to my sophomore year, we went to a 3-4, so I was kind of the outside backer, the guy that was the rush backer as opposed to the drop backer. And then I vacillated between that and back linebacker and all those different things. And so there was a lot of transition in my time at the University of Notre Dame, and I loved every second of it. I always wanted to be a team first guy, and whatever the team needed me to do, I was more than willing to do. And we enjoyed a lot of success because not only myself, but a lot of guys on our team all had the same mentality that we just wanted to win and we wanted to play for championships. And so unfortunately, we came close in my freshman year and we were voted out, but that's a story for another day. But I just felt like my time was one of lots of great memories, had a lot of great teammates and had a lot of awesome moments on the football field.
Yeah, well, and Bertrand, we have a bunch of Notre Dame fans because we have a great channel with a lot of people that have been Notre Dame fans, diehards. They're already talking about 1993 and how you guys were robbed. But again, like you said, it's another conversation for a completely different day. Yeah, it's water on the bridge. We can't stay on it forever. It's about the next championship, right? That'll hopefully be coming very soon. So you're a Texas guy originally, though. So you come from Texas all the way up to South Bend. I guess talk to me about your first conversations with Notre Dame. Like when you first started talking to them, was it like a cultural shock to a degree? Like I know Notre Dame was like a big brand as it always has been, even back then, right? I mean, they were in the golden era of Notre Dame football, but just kind of your initial conversations with Notre Dame from the recruiting side. And was it a bit of a culture shock to go from Texas all the way up to South Bend, Indiana?
Most definitely it was. And I'll give you a funny story. The first time I got on a plane to go and visit Notre Dame was in January. I thought I was going to California. I didn't even know where Notre Dame was. I just knew that they had played Texas A&M in the Cotton Bowl the year before, and A&M undefeated. Big Texas guy. I was really big on A&M. That was one of my teams. Talk about teams that I was interested in, and they were undefeated, and they felt like it was kind of a letdown to play Notre Dame in that Cotton Bowl. And once I saw Notre Dame with the physicality and the way that they manhandled Texas A&M, it really changed my perspective. Like, wow, okay, I thought this was one of the best teams in the country, and they just got manhandled on each side of the ball, offense and special teams. So I need to give them a try, and I need to give them a look. And so Ron Cooper at the time was the recruiting coordinator for my side of the country, as far as in the South. And so I spent a lot of time talking to him. Of course, T. Yella, Yelovich was the recruiting coordinator over all of it. And so I spent some time with him. But for me, it was a little bit of culture shock because I thought I was in California. When I got off the plane, I'm looking down and I see no streets. I see just snow. because this is January. And I'm like, oh my God, where in the world am I? And so I didn't bring a jacket on my recruiting visit. So there were a lot of issues maybe working against me coming to Notre Dame. But once I got there, all the guys that I saw were very accommodating. One guy even let me borrow his jacket so I didn't freeze to death. And so once I had that experience with the guys that were already there, and they didn't know me from Adam, it made me really give a deep thought to what are the possibilities of playing here with these guys. Even though it's cold, I still had a great time, and it still felt like somewhere I could be.
And who were some of the other schools, Bertrand, that were like heavy on you? Like I have to think the Texas schools were a little upset. You know, you got out of the state of Texas, but like who were some other schools that maybe attracted you at that time?
So I took 4 visits. I took one to Texas A&M. That was the one that I was really heavy on, but it was so close to home. I needed to get away from the house because I was kind of a mama's boy. I needed to learn to grow up. There was a school that I had interest in, but I didn't visit because after my Notre Dame visit, I stopped taking visits. So I went to Oklahoma, I went to Penn State, I went to Notre Dame, and obviously Texas A&M. So those were the 4 schools that were the most attractive to me. And one story about my signing day, I had both letters of intent from Penn State, Notre Dame on my dresser. And I said, whichever one I dreamt about, that was going to be the one that I signed with, because at the time, Penn State was known as linebacker U. That's what I thought I was going to play. And Notre Dame obviously had the history and the tradition and all those things. And I just felt like I couldn't go wrong. Coach Holtz and Coach Paterno had come to my school back-to-back days and recruited me. So things were looking good at the time. And I just didn't feel like I could make a wrong answer. I dreamt gold, and the rest is history.
Ryan, did you hear what he said? He said Coach Holtz and Coach Paterno came to my school back-to-back days.
Sean, that's what I was about to
me.
say, man. That's what
It's
I was
like,
about to say.
and I think that's kind of been lost. Like when you have those moments. Like when I was in high school, I only played basketball, Bertrand, and we would be in the locker room or we would be in the gym, and we would see these legendary coaches. I remember when Vivian Stringer walked into the gym, and I was like, "Yo, that's Vivian Stringer." Like, and people were like, "Who is that?" I'm like, "What do you mean, who is that?" Like, that's Vivian Stringer. So I think now with social media, a lot of these recruits don't get the same type of moments that you guys got a chance to get, because when a coach like that walks in, the whole school takes notice and the whispers start getting around the building. It's like a monumental moment that you even point to right now. The state of recruiting right now, is that probably the one thing that you wish younger kids had an opportunity to experience? Or is there anything else that you think they're missing out on that would probably be even bigger?
I think for today's athletes, the recruiting experience is a little different. Social media has really been a game changer for recruiting. Yeah. There's so much more access to young men. And I don't know if it's all positive. I don't know how to gauge that, because you have to be in those young people's shoes. I know for myself, having that much stimulation as far as social media when I was 16, 17 years old, it would have been too much for me. I don't think I would have handled it very well. And my mother being a teacher, she definitely would have reined me in as far as the exposure that I would have received. And so I remember getting calls at 9 o'clock, and my mother was like, there will be no calls to this house after 9 o'clock. And so if she was like that about phone calls, I can only imagine what she would have been like with DMs and direct messages and text and all that kind of stuff. So today's athlete has a lot more on their plate to deal with. And I just think sometimes when you hear about these, I'm so blessed to receive the offer from this school and that school, I think people need to realize that that's not necessarily an offer. If you're not given a FedEx package with a pen and some paper, it's not really an offer. You know what I mean? So, I understand that people want to build their brand and they want to do all these different things and bring a lot of attention to themselves. But I really wish that they would simplify the recruiting process, because it doesn't have to be so many bells and whistles around it. If you really are interested in a kid, then tell them that. But don't have him put out all these tweets. I'm so blessed, and I mean, I can quote it verbatim. I'm so blessed to receive an offer from this
Right.
school. Again, if you're a sophomore, if you're a freshman, it's not really an offer. I'm so blessed to receive interest from this school. And I think the verbiage sometimes gets convoluted in how it's put out there for the masses to see.
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
No, go, Sean. You're good.
No, just to piggyback on that, I think it drives, of course, it drives the business of college football and piques the interest, but it also makes the fan base even more crazed, in my opinion, right? Because now they're attached to these kids at an earlier point in their life. I'm here in Chicago. They're talking about sixth grade basketball players. And I'm like, man, relax. So when you talk about that and how things are built up, if and when you do get a chance to talk to young men, specifically maybe in the Texas area, about recruiting and about schools like Notre Dame, what do you tell them about 17-year-old Bertrand and the man you are today and the difference that Notre Dame makes to a young man if you choose to go there?
The one thing Coach Holtz really drove home when I spoke to him is that he said Notre Dame was not a 4-year decision, it was a 40-year decision. And when you talk about the opportunities that you will have well past graduation, the network that you will have as far as the alumni and opportunities for business and just relationships afterwards, he spoke about that much more than he spoke about on the field. Yes, when you get on the field, you're going to be able to determine how much you played by how you perform it, and that's going to take care of itself. But the access that you have when you come to a Notre Dame, and there are lots of other schools. I know, I'm biased towards my alma mater, but there are a lot of great schools. And the funny thing about it is, I don't have to go back to Texas. I can stay right here in my house because I have a 16-year-old son who's actually going through the process as we speak. So I have to talk to him that you don't necessarily make a decision based on today. You make a decision based on what you project your life to be, how you want your life to go in the future. What would you like to become? Where would you like to live? All these type of things. So the recruiting process and taking visits and going to see campuses, I think, are a great way to really gauge the type of life that you want to live. Do you want to be in a cold weather environment? Do you want to be where it's sunshiny? Do you want to be close to home? All these things really play into it that you don't necessarily think about at 17, because I'll be honest, at 17, all I was thinking about is, am I going to be able to win the national championship, and how pretty are the girls? That's actually my thought process. And even with that, it's still, those weren't the determining factors, because I did have enough foresight to see that, okay, going here, there are going to be much more opportunities post school and post football than there would be maybe some other schools.
Bertrand, I know you already talked to, it sounds like you're a great support system for your son. And you mentioned your mom already, who you said was a teacher. And I can really kind of relate to kind of that background, because before I was in the sports business for good, I was a teacher. I was a middle school teacher. My wife is a elementary school teacher right this second. So I understand how important, especially talking to recruits on a daily basis, how important the support system is at home, especially. Can you talk a little bit about that? How much maybe your mom and just your family in general was so vital in you making a decision, and what you kind of prioritize as what you were looking for in a school?
So my mother was a high school teacher. So I had the unfortunate experience of going to high school every single day with my mother. She was a senior teacher of economics and actually had her for a class, which I don't ever recommend for those don't know what to call your mom. Hey, mom, or Mrs. Berry. None of that seems right. So I don't recommend it. But the thing that I will always be grateful for my mother's perspective, is that she allowed me to make the decision, because she understood that this was going to be the first real big decision that I was going to have to make as a quote unquote young adult that was going to really affect my life going forward. And yeah, she would have loved for me to have stayed close to home and been around her and all those type of things, because for her, me and my brother were her whole world. And I could appreciate that as a father. Now, you want to always have the opportunity to reach out and touch your children. But she trusted me enough to make that decision based on the way I wanted to live my life. And she felt that I was mature enough to make that decision based on how I felt after going to visit these particular campuses. So I have to give her credit. The fact that she wanted me to stay close to home, but she understood how great of an opportunity Notre Dame was from a graduation standpoint, from an education standpoint, the quality of degree that would be from a Notre Dame as opposed to maybe some other schools. Not to knock other schools, but when you start talking about the quality of education that you get from a Notre Dame, that says something all its own. So even though she would have loved for me to have been closer, she understood that it was a great opportunity, whether it was Notre Dame, whether it was Penn State. She got it from an education standpoint. She knew that getting degrees from those schools would take me much further than football potentially ever could. So I don't think that she had any problems. Once she saw my Final Four, I think she understood that I understood what the magnitude of this decision truly was.
Bertrand, I'm going to ask you an unfair question, if you don't mind. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but I think it's a little unfair, okay? I'm going to ask you to pretend that you are a recruit in today's world now, right? Knowing how your experience went, obviously, me and Sean deal with this on a daily basis talking to recruits, right? The NIL, just insanity that is happening today, right? I have very mixed emotions about it. I've been very forefront about that, right? Like, I love players having an opportunity to make a profit or a living off of name, image, and likeness. I think that there is a lot of good at the roots to it, right? But then you're also seeing teams, programs manipulate it, obviously, and just throwing handouts. And that's not what NIL actually is, right? So I guess my question for you is, do you feel like NIL would have been a factor in your recruiting today? Or do you feel like your process just would have changed at all with what the landscape of recruiting is today?
Oh, most definitely NIL would have been a determining factor. I mean, listen, I didn't come from great means. We weren't rich. My mother was a teacher, as I stated, so we lived very modestly. My mother did a great job of providing for me and my brother, and I'll always be forever grateful to my mother. But if I had an opportunity to take some of that pressure off my mother back then, of course I would have. What child wouldn't have taken that opportunity to help their parents, especially ones they know is struggling, working hard every single day just to put food on the table and clothes on the back? Yeah, I would have done anything I could have to help my mother because I love my mother. And I think it's reciprocated. She would have done anything for me. I would have done anything for her. And so had that part been an issue as far as where I wanted to go, yeah, money would have definitely swayed my opinion because it would have provided something immediately beneficial to my overall family situation. And I think sometimes people get caught up in the, oh, well, you're getting a degree and they're paying for your education and that's enough. Well, there is no price limit on my name and my likeness. That to me, however much I can generate from myself, I should be entitled to 100% of that because that's my name, that's my likeness, that's my image. I've had that likeness all my life. This particular school hadn't had my image and my name all their life. So why should they get a part of any of that when I'm the one that it's my personality that's going out there to sell? It's my name that is being put out there and ballyhooed around and about. And so, however much money you can get from name, image, and likeness, absolutely go for it. Now, when you start talking about getting paid to play, that's something entirely different. But if I have a relationship with different entities around the city where my school is, and they like me and I have enough of a personality, well, that's more power to me. And if I have a teammate that's a funny guy and also makes a lot of plays on Saturdays, and he has an opportunity to make more money than the rest of us, how can I be mad at that? That's him and his situation. He's doing his thing. So to think that it's going to be fair, when you talk about money, nothing is ever going to be fair. And you're never going to have a blanket situation across the board where everybody is going to get the same thing. That's never going to. It doesn't happen in the real world. It doesn't happen past college. So why would you think that it would happen in that situation?
Yeah. As you move forward, is there a perfect marriage for a unique situation such as Notre Dame and the NIL space where you can find the present and the future of the 4 for 40 you talked about, and Notre Dame being able to be effective in the NIL space as it moves forward, because a lot of fans feel like Notre Dame is lacking, they're behind. But as things evolve, and I think Jack Swarbrick, kind of has taken the standpoint of the point of view, I'm going to relax and let the market set itself or see how things settle. And then once all the Wild West is gone and we kind of get down to the nitty gritty, then Notre Dame will see how we attack this thing. Do you think that's a smart way for him and the university to approach this thing?
I don't think he really has a choice, because if you look at how big of a brand Notre Dame is not just South Bend, Indiana. Notre Dame, Indiana, or Notre Dame University goes across the globe. You could go anywhere in the world and you can find a Notre Dame. And I know that sounds a little pretentious to say, but I've actually seen it. And I've seen Notre Dame fans in different parts of the world, even where football isn't really played. So when you start talking about business opportunities, certain brands are going to be bigger than others. That's just, there's nothing you can do about that. I think for Jack, he's done a great job thus far, in my opinion, of really allowing the individuals to kind of take that on themselves and see what they can get. Hey, if you can go get it, more power to you. And know that there's going to be a ton of opportunities for a big time Notre Dame player. If you're a Michael Mayer, my God, I mean, the of opportunities that will be thrown that young man's way, I can't even begin to think about or imagine. And if you're a quarterback at the University of Notre Dame, the prestige that title holds, and the people that will want to be associated with you as the starting quarterback at the University of Notre Dame, man, listen, the sky is the limit. I think that other players are going to have to get their hustle on, but what area of life is that not the case? Some guys have to hustle harder than others. That's just the way it is. And so if you're going to be able to police it and make it streamlined or equal across the board, there's no way. There's no way that that's going to happen. And the sooner the players and the people associated around the program start to really embrace that and really understand that that's a fact, then I think everybody will be much better off.
So who was the OG that grabbed Bertrand Berry by his neck collar when he walked in as a freshman and said, yo, you come with me. I'm going to show you what Notre Dame is all about?
The one guy that I followed to this day is my big brother, and I will always have love for him, is Bryant Young. Bryant Young, freshman year, and all I had to do was watch him. He didn't have to say much. He wasn't a big speaker. He didn't say a whole lot. I just watched the way that he went about his business on and off the field. You talk about class personified. You talk about a leader in every aspect of the word. We just celebrated going into the Hall of Fame about a few months ago, and I couldn't be happier for an individual, because the things that he taught me by not even speaking, just by being who he was, he taught me about how to be a professional, how to be a leader, and how to be the best version of yourself. You don't always have to be a rah-rah guy to be a leader. You don't always have to be the best player. But when you do the things the right way and you are the best player and you do lead by example, that's special. That's rare. You don't find that very often. And for me, Bryant Young will always be one of my favorite teammates of all time.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, you play with a lot of great players, obviously, during your time. Bertrand, I know when we talk about the allure of Notre Dame, a lot of what people talk about and recruits talk about is the alumni network, obviously, right? And you're talking about a lifelong friendship that you created during your time at Notre Dame. How real is this, man? Because I know some people will probably be like, oh, is it really legit? How legit is it? How have you been able to take it? I don't want to say take advantage, but to get positive feedback as far as your relationships with players, your relationship with people on campus, other students. Like, how much is that alumni relationship aspect of everything? How real is that?
So there's a group text that I'm on right now of about 26, 27 of us, including myself. We speak every week, every single week. And I can tell you that I have relationships with all 26 of those guys in some capacity. Some guys I only speak with through that text, but I've had conversations with them, and at some point I've seen them since I've moved on from the University of Notre Dame. And I'm speaking to you today. That shows you the reach. of graduating from University of Notre Dame. I haven't played for Notre Dame in 26 years.
Yep.
So the fact that I'm here in 2022 talking to you today, I'm just meeting you for the first time. That shows you how big of a reach the alumni is. It's really combined with social media and all of the ways that you can communicate with people now. They said that once upon a time it was 6 degrees of separation. I believe that it's about 2 now. And you can be 2 steps from anybody in the world if you really want. And the fact that I've been able to stay in touch with some great people from school, meet people from school in ways that I would have never been able to other than social media or phones and all this type of thing, then it's incredible to think how vast my 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 Rolodex is as far as numbers that I have in my phone and the ability to reach out to different people in different pockets that don't necessarily have anything to do with no football in and of itself. Just being from the university and having that reach, I feel tremendously blessed to have acquired such a vast group of people that I can reach out to at any time.
Is there any game in particular for you guys, because you guys didn't have the Shamrock Series? Is there any particular game for you guys that felt like a Shamrock Series type of thing where you played on a neutral field or you traveled maybe? Did you guys get a chance to travel out to Hawaii?
Well, remember, I was the first in '96. We were the first to go to Ireland when we played Navy. And so we were able to go out there. And unfortunately, in Dublin, they were in the middle of a civil war.
Civil War, yeah.
Really tour and see a lot of Dublin. We had to kind of keep it moving on the buses. Like, we drove past a lot of historic places and we didn't get to go out and actually see it and all those type of things, but man, when I tell you it was a great experience and being able to see another culture, another part of the world that I would have never been able to had it not been for Notre Dame, that was a blessing in and of itself. And back then, a lot of the games felt like Shamrock Series because you're always getting everybody's best effort. Everybody's always circling your game on their calendar because they know that one is going to be on TV, two, you're going to be playing a team that was nationally ranked, probably in the top 10. And so it was always a lot of attention around the games. And I loved it. I always loved playing in big moments and having to get up. There was no real homecoming game for us. Even the academy played them. They gave us everything that they wanted. And a couple of times they came close, and Air Force actually got me my senior year.
Wow. Well, Bertrand, I'll say this. We're very blessed to have you, and we have a great channel here. Like I said, a lot of great fans in the chat. So I wanted to open this up the last couple minutes that we have you here. Some fans throwing some questions for you, man. So it's going to be directly from the fans of Irish Breakdown. And first question is from Irish Blooded, who wants to know, what was your favorite moment in Notre Dame Stadium? I think this was a great segue with basically what we were just talking about here.
1993, November 13th, we played Florida State in the quote-unquote. I remember the entire week before that game. Usually when you have a game week at home, it starts to become crowded on campus around Thursday. People start Thursday and kind of milling around, and it's a little inconvenient to get to classes and stuff like that. Obviously, the campus has expanded since my time there, so it was a little more intimate. It was a little smaller, a little more closed in. But I remember that week, it was wall-to-wall people from Monday to Saturday. And you could not, if you had to go to class, if you tried to go to class, which I actually did, son of a teacher, I actually tried to go to class. You had to leave at least 10, 15 minutes earlier than what you usually did because there were that many people on campus. And I remember the game itself, and when Sean Wooden knocked that ball down and we realized that we had won the game, and they lit up Flanner Hall with the number 1 on top of it. For those special moments, because that was something that you always work for. That's what you went to Notre Dame for, to have that moment where you could say, man, we're the actually best in the country right now.
Love it. I love it. So we had a question from Lucas Dezen, who said, Canadian over here, Bertrand. What was your experience with the CFL in Canada? I know you only played a few games, but I'm always curious about how former Notre Dame athletes reflect on their time up in Canada.
So my time in Canada, unfortunately, it wasn't a great experience, but I will say I enjoyed my teammates. At the time, I was in between teams in the NFL, and I wanted to keep my film up. I wanted to stay relevant and get some work in. So I decided to go to Canada and play in, I believe that was 2000, with Edmonton, and I had a opportunity to play 2 games there, and my only experience of seeing Montreal was through the CFL, and so. Um, Unfortunately, it didn't end the way that I would have liked it to, and there were some things contractually that kind of got sideways, but uh, the place itself was beautiful. I mean, it was a little cold for my liking, but it's beautiful, and the people were very, very nice, and I don't have anything negative to say about Edmonton, Alberta, or Canada, or anything like that. The business side of it was something a little different, but the people in the city, I mean, they treated me very, very well from my brief time there.
We had another question. This was from Matt Lee. He said, hey, Bertram, what was it like being a part of 2 great rivalry series like Michigan and top rival USC? Bertram, this is an interesting question that I definitely want to pull up because, I mean, Notre Dame doesn't really play Michigan anymore, right? Like it's been a kind of a foregone rivalry. And I mean, these are 2 of the rivalries that I grew up with most, like dearest to my heart kind of thing. So can you just talk about, I guess, a couple of the great rivalries that you all had, that Notre Dame's had historically against Michigan and USC?
Michigan and USC, to this day, I hate both those schools. But the funny thing is, I have so many friends from both of those schools, and my teammate from my rookie year in the NFL was the now head coach at the University of Michigan. So he was my quarterback. That was my teammate. That's my quarterback, in the words of T.O. So a lot of mixed emotions, and of course, Florida State, you got to throw them in there because we played them 3 straight years, and obviously had some great battles with them and Coach Bowden and the players. But the USC was something different because there was so much around it. Like the whole week leading up to it, we had to hear that fight song, that fight on from USC, and Coach Holtz was a master motivator. He knew that if he played it every minute of every practice from the start of the week till game day, and by the time we got to game day, we were so sick of that damn song. Every time I heard it, I wanted to go kill somebody. Now, metaphorically speaking, obviously, but it was so much hype built around it, and I remember the coaches having to come down and give certain facts about the rivalry as far as Southern Cal is concerned, and so I knew a lot about it going in, and I remember my freshman year just thinking, man, there's a lot of history here. Like, I'm even having to learn at football. Like, this is crazy. Like, I thought schoolwork was just for classes, but Coach Holtz did a great job of really giving us the history of the game and letting us understand the magnitude of it. And Michigan was one of those, because we were so close in proximity, we didn't really have to go very far to play them. And I'll just say this: it's one of my son's favorite schools, and I'm trying to get him to change his mind currently, because that's something that really bothers me. But yeah, he asked me if I ever went there, would I ever wear the maize and blue, and I almost threw up in my mouth. So there's always going to be that rivalry. It was a great game, or great games between myself and those schools, and those are memories that the guys that I'm friends with from those schools, we talk about all the time, lovingly, of course, now, but back then it was a lot of pride in what school you chose to go to.
It's my favorite part of college football too, man. Those rivalries, like, they just get you up, no matter how good a team is, no matter how bad a team is, like, those, you just get up for those rivalry games, man, which is just always fun, which surprised me why Oklahoma got killed so badly against Texas this past weekend. But that's another conversation for another day. Moving on to the next question. I think this is a really cool one too, Bertrand, because Irish for Life asks, he wants to know what you're kind of doing today. So Bertrand, what degree did you get while you were at Notre Dame? What do you do today? Have you used your degree in your career?
So my degree was in communications and theater. And what I currently do, if you can see my logo right here, I own a business of training defensive linemen one-on-one, and it's called Train Station, which is a play on my nickname, B-Train. And I've been able to send about 15 guys to college thus far on scholarships, and extremely proud of each of those guys. And working with high school kids here currently in the Valley, it's awesome, and working with some pro guys as well. So I do radio, and I've done radio for years, and that was using my degree. When I got to Denver, I got an opportunity to host a radio show for Mark Schlereth. I don't know if that name rings a bell. Stink was a guy that was a former Bronco and a fellow alum like myself when I played in Denver, and he gave me the opportunity to fill in his show while he would go to ESPN's campus out in Bristol. And so I was able to really start there with radio, and I just fell in love with it. And when I got to Arizona, I did a show while I played, and then afterwards, I had my own show for about 5 years, and now I still do work with the Cardinals. Even yesterday, I do pregame and postgame radio for the Arizona Cardinals. So I'm constantly using my degree. It's something that I was very serious about. I thought I was going to be a lawyer when I first got to school, but it really transitioned into talking into a mic as opposed to talking into a group of 12. So I was still able to use that gift of gab, but I channeled it in a different way.
Love it. Love it. So we're going to move on. Only a couple more questions for you, Bertrand. Really appreciate your time again. So Lucas Dezen, who was asking about your CFL experience, also wanted to add in another one, if you don't mind. What's your take on Isaiah Foskey? A little contrasting comparison, if you can. Do you see similarities in your game? So obviously you played more off-ball hybrid. You played on the line a little bit. Isaiah Foskey's kind of that true hand in the dirt. I mean, he plays some drop at times, but can you compare yourself to Isaiah Foskey with how he plays today? Is there any similarities you feel like in your game?
Well, there's definitely similarities. I mean, he's a guy that uses his speed and quickness, and I would have loved to have been in his position and put my hand in the ground and do that on a more consistent basis. My senior year, I was able to do that, and I was able to have a pretty good year, 10 sacks and a few tackles and whatnot. And so I think for him, the fact that he's getting coached the way that he's getting coached now, I think that benefits him in the long term. And I think for myself, the thing that I wish I would have done earlier in my career was embrace putting my hand in the ground. Back in the early 90s, the vogue positions were linebacker, because those were guys that were considered the athletes. So I wanted to be one of the best athletes as well as best football players on the field. So I always thought that meant playing behind the line of scrimmage. Well, getting to the NFL and seeing some of the salaries that the guys with the hands on the ground, it changed your mind pretty quick. And for me, I found that was my skill set going forward was a lot better than for me going backwards. And I think for Foskey, he's doing a terrific job of using his skill set. I think when you have a player that is used properly and is allowed to do what he really does best, that's when you really get the most out of that particular individual. And I think for him, he's being used in that capacity to his advantage. And I think he's going to have a great career, the rest of his career at Notre Dame. And I think he's got a great shot at playing on Sundays.
Absolutely. Bertrand, I probably should have asked you this one earlier. With you being a high school running back and then figuring out the transition to defense when you got to Notre Dame, what was kind of the size coming into college? And because I think at least I saw in Pro Football Reference you were listed with Arizona at like 255-ish. So I was just curious about the maturation of your just physical development.
So when I was in high school, I was about 210. And I wasn't the biggest guy. Like I said, I was a running back, so I was predicated on speed and power. And being a track athlete, I liken myself as a pretty good all-around athlete, played basketball as well. That's another thing, too, for these guys that are thinking about going to the next level. Develop other skills. Don't just be a football player, because you can use those other skills that you develop in other sports to help you on the football field. I wouldn't be the player that I was had it not been for basketball and track. So being one sport, it's okay, but it's better when you develop other muscle groups and other skill sets, because then those translate very well to playing in at the sport that you choose. And for me, it was something that I really enjoyed, and making that transition was I knew I had to put on weight. So my freshman year, I put on at least 10, 15 pounds just by having a different workout regimen, having a different eating regimen. In college, that's where you find your most growth, because everything changes. When you're in high school, you just kind of you eat what's there. But now there's a very specific type of diet that you're afforded when you're on campus. And of course, with Notre Dame, they didn't spare any expense. We always were treated with the best of everything. And so I was very fortunate to take advantage, but yet not overindulge in some of the things. And so I felt like it was they always talk about the freshman 15 or the freshman 10. I had a healthy freshman 10. And to maintain a little bit of a figure, if you will, and still go out there and try to play at a very high level on the field.
We had Irish for Life that asked, Bertrand, is your son being recruited by Notre Dame? What class is he? Who is he interested in at this point? I know you talked a little bit about your son's college decision process.
So my son just made the transition to defensive line, working with me. He fought me for years, and he got his first letter from the University of Utah. And no, he's not being currently recruited by Notre Dame. I would love for him to be recruited by Notre Dame, but I don't know if he wants that pressure. And as a father, I understand that. I understand that he doesn't want to have to try to live up to what I did at school. He wants to have his own identity, which is why he didn't play defensive line his first 2 years, playing football in high school. So he's making the transition. He's doing very well. I'm proud of him. I can't wait to see him on the field on Friday. And I really hope that he's good enough to be recruited by him. I think he's a tremendous athlete. He's a better athlete than I was at this stage in his career. And now it's just a matter of honing it and making sure that he's making enough plays to where he can grab the attention of some of the bigger schools like a Notre Dame, like a Michigan, like a USC, and all those other schools.
You're just skipping a few years until he's playing on Sundays. So I like it, man. I love it. We had
you got to put it out there. Put it out there in the ether so it will come to fruition.
Speak it till it happens, man. I love it. Absolutely. Irish Mojo 25 said, who would you say was the biggest rival you faced when you were at Notre Dame? Bertrand, I'm going to take this from a different perspective, because obviously we talked about rivalries of teams. Was there a player that was maybe a big rival of yours, or maybe one of the better players you played against? Like any names like that?
Orlando Pace at Ohio State. Orlando Pace. We not only got it on in college, we got it on in the NFL. We were in the same division when I was with the Cardinals. He was with the Rams. And he was a Hall of Famer, #1 overall pick. Tremendous amount of respect for Orlando. We were actually briefly teammates. I had spent a camp with the St. Louis Rams when they were in St. Louis, and right after they won the Super Bowl. And so lots of memories with Orlando. We played against each other twice in my college career, and I don't even know how many times in the NFL, but he was a guy, he was good right out of the gate. There was no question Orlando was going to be a big-time player on Sundays by what he did at Ohio State. And of course, he was one of the first to have the phrase pancakes, taking, guys and flattening them on the field. And I got to say, I think he got me one time in college, but I was bound and determined not to be that guy. And he was a great player. He's a good friend. We haven't spoken in a while, but, if I were to see him, we would definitely laugh it up and joke it up. We actually took a picture together at the Pro Bowl, me, him, and Walter Jones, because we were all in the and I'm thinking to myself, I got to see these guys 4 times a year. Like, my goodness, they're making it hard for me to get back to the Pro Bowl. So I said, let me make sure I take a picture with these 2 guys, because I know they'll be in the Hall of Fame. And these are the guys that are trying to prevent me from getting to Canton, Ohio. So, it's all respect. There's all love. We love to compete against each other. But when it's all said and done, if they ever needed anything, they could call on me and vice versa.
As a lifelong Rams fan, that's why I watched you so much growing up. Orlando Pace was one of my favorite players of all time. Walter Jones, man, you played a great era of tackles, man. Jonathan Ogden was in that era. It was just fantastic era of football. The Chiefs had a couple great offensive linemen as well, too, at that point. So last question for you, Bertrand. Really appreciate the time again. Will E wants to know, who's your favorite Notre Dame quarterback of all time?
My favorite Notre Dame quarterback.
Can a defensive end like a good quarterback? I guess is the first question we should ask.
Well, I can like my own quarterbacks, yeah, because
True.
I don't have. So if I had to say favorite Notre Dame quarterback, I mean, my gosh, the funny thing is I played with Jarius at college and in pros, Jarius Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
We were teammates both in Notre Dame and in Denver. Ron Paulus was my classmate, so of course he's one of my favorites for obvious reasons. Still involved with University of Notre Dame.
Yep.
The one guy that when I think of Notre Dame and just cool as the other side of the pillow, you got to go Joe Montana. I mean, I had the opportunity to rub elbows with him a few times, and he's just as cool in person as you think he is. You think about the persona of Joe Montana from his days at San Fran and obviously winning the championship at school, but just a very cool man and a great man. And for him to embrace me the way that he did, just on the strength of us being fellow alum, that meant the world to me. And I will always remember our conversations and being a fan of his and how the San Francisco 49ers played back in the day. I didn't obviously watch when he was at school. I don't think I was alive yet, but we'll save that for. But he was definitely one of my favorite quarterbacks as far as the total package as player on the field and a cool guy off the field.
Ryan Bertrand mentioned like the usual suspects, but that 93 season was so special. And I think one of the reasons it was so special was the ascension of a guy named Kevin McDougal. Like it was like all of a sudden, it's like, okay, where did this kid come from? He wins the quarterback battle in camp. And then the way he played during that season, like what was so special about him? Because most people, when they talk Notre Dame quarterbacks, don't even mention him, but he had a great season in 93 that was able to help that offense and propel you guys to the record you had.
Yeah, K-Mac. I honestly forgot K-Mac. K-Mac at the time was a team favorite. Players on the team respected him and they rooted for him. Coach Holtz had Ron Paulus, who was the number one recruit in high school at the time, coming out of Pennsylvania, Berwick, Pennsylvania, if I'm not mistaken. And he's my classmate, but at the same time, the upperclassmen and guys that had been on the team understood what K-Mac had to go through in order to get that position, because he had given the job to Ron Paulus, and had it not been for that unfortunate snapping of his shoulder, Ron Paulus would have been the quarterback that year. And so the players, we were upset that Ron got hurt, but at the same time, we knew that K-Mac was going to do something special because of the way that he had to put in his time. He paid his dues. He waited behind Rick Meyer, and he finally got an opportunity to play. And it didn't start off great. That game against Northwestern didn't start off great in 93, but he caught fire against Michigan that second game. And from then on, he never looked back. And it was one of those special years. I would have loved for him to have gotten the opportunity to have a fifth year, but it was clear that Ron Paulus was the quarterback in waiting. And but he was special, man. He set a lot of records in that 1 year, and we don't have the record that we had without K-Mac.
Was Lake Dawson's one more question? Was Lake
go for it.
Was Lake Dawson's mouth as big as it looked on TV?
Man, Duloc was one of my favorite. We called him Duloc because Notre Dame Duloc, and his name was Lake. Lake was one of the best conditioned athletes of all time, and his smile was as big as the University of Notre Dame. I mean, it wasn't big, but I mean, he had these white pearly teeth, man, and this great smile. He was a handsome dude, and we all love Lake. Lake was one of those guys, like, he looked right off of a movie set. You know what I mean? Because he had that larger than life smile. He always was in a great mood, and he was another one of those seniors that I looked up to. That whole senior class, man. You had Jeff Burris, Aaron Taylor, Tim Ruddy,
Wow.
On and on of great players that were guys that I was able to play alongside. Like, I can't believe I'm in the huddle with these guys: Jim Flanagan, Oliver Gibson, Brian Hamilton. I mean, there was so many guys, but Lake was that guy. He brought that flag, that flair, that drip, if you will, how they say it nowadays, to Notre Dame, and he was always uniform, always on point. He always out to the side, and once he made a play, he was going to let you know he made a play.
Well, Bertrand,
man, we played together in Indianapolis too. That's my brother.
Yeah.
I'd love it. And Bertrand, I feel so bad because I was only going to keep you for half an hour, but this was just such a phenomenal interview. I was like, okay, we're just going to keep going until he tells us he has to leave, I guess. So really appreciate you taking the time again and joined by Bertrand Berry, Notre Dame great, 12-year NFL veteran, Pro Bowler for the Arizona Cardinals. Bertrand, I just want to give you the opportunity, kind of last thing, shout outs to Notre Dame fans. Where can they follow you? What have you been up to? All that good stuff. Just give you a minute to plug.
So you can follow me on Twitter at btrain92. That's the easiest one. I also have a account for my business at Train Station 1. Instagram is Train Station 1 as well. And, I mean, that's about it. You know what I mean? Like, other than my phone number, that's I'm usually one, if people reach out on Twitter or IG, I try to respond. I never try to big time people or think I'm too good to respond. I mean, it takes 2 seconds to respond to somebody. If they've taken the time to want to reach out and communicate, and it's within reason, I mean, hey, if you got something to say, hey, holler at me. We'll figure it out. We'll chop it up for a minute.
I love it, brother. Love it. Again, really appreciate you taking the time to join us today, man. This was a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much. Genuinely.
Appreciate it. Go Irish.
Go
Irish. Great way to end it, Sean. Go Irish. Man, that was a great conversation, man. I knew you had to sneak in the one about Lake Dawson there at the end, man. I knew you had to sneak it in.
Look, Lake was pure entertainment. I don't know if people don't remember watching Notre Dame game. He's right. Anytime Lake caught a pass, everyone in the stadium knew it was him that caught the pass. There was no mistaking it. Great interview. Great to see, especially on this weekend with Shamrock Series, where the alumni was so evident.
Yes.
That was one of the things that I can point out. We never really have a problem with getting in contact with recruits during their visits or when they come to a game day. My guys that I talked to constantly were hitting me with emojis, Ryan. And that's when I knew, like, okay, this weekend is different.
Yes.
Right. I'm not getting like full sentences or a paragraph back. I'm getting like an fire emoji.
The star eye emoji, the fire emoji. Exactly.
It's like, okay, you know what? You're right. I'm tweaking. You're 17. You're in Vegas. You're taking pictures. You're superstars. All of the fans recognize you, which is fantastic for them to experience. Being readily recognized by the Notre Dame fan base, taking pictures, hobnobbing, if you would, with Notre Dame players of the past and access to everything in Allegiant Stadium. Top notch. Fantastic weekend, and thank you to top it off. This was great. When you texted me and told me we were having B-Train on, I was like, oh yeah, this is what's up. This is what's up.
Yeah, man. He I'm a Rams fan, so I grew up, Sean. He was just a terror, man, for the Cardinals. Like, he just messed this up, man. It was just because he mentioned Orlando Pace, man, but he gave everyone everything they needed to handle. Again, I think in 2004, I think that was his best season. He went to the Cardinals. I think he had 14 and a half sacks. He was on the Super Bowl team when they went up to down to Raymond James Stadium, and they lost to the Steelers. But it was he was a really good football player, man, just really good. So, want to thank again Bertrand Berry for joining us today. I hope everyone enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. Right? Yeah. Again, we wanted to keep him for half an hour. I kept him for 50-something minutes. Like, it was a great conversation. We're going to move on to a little more recruiting talk. Great to get his perspective on recruiting, by the way, and kind of comparing and contrasting it a little bit to what recruiting is today. But before we get on to the next segment, if you could like, share, subscribe to this podcast. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, 5-star ratings are very much appreciated. If you want to give us a 0-star, then just don't leave it, just go away. Don't do that. All right. And make sure to go follow Bertrand Berry on all his social media accounts. BTrain25, on Twitter is where I follow him. And he followed me back, Sean. It was so cool. So cool. So let's get into some recruiting talk here, Sean. So as you stated, right? Big weekend this past weekend for Notre Dame football, not only for the simple fact that that Notre Dame won the football game against BYU out in Vegas, Shamrock Series game, 28-20. Fantastic. There was also a nice little crowd of Notre Dame commits that were on campus for the game, man, which was cool to see. I mean, you mentioned they're getting the star treatment. I mean, I saw so many pictures of people just taking pictures with Drake Bowen and all those guys, man. You had Jaden Greathouse on campus. You had Braylon James. You had Jack Larson. You had Cooper Flanagan. You had Joe Otting. So many great players that were on campus that are currently committed to Notre Dame in either the 2023 or 2024 recruiting class. And I just put a little update from me and Sean on the message board here pretty recently, boards.irishbreakdown.com, by the way, just giving you a little insight into some of the fun that these recruits were having this past weekend, Sean, which was really cool to see. I know I talked to Cooper Flanagan and he was just talking about, the energy around the game, right? Yeah. It was just so incredible. Said he went to a steakhouse after the game, got to do some karaoke. It was just a really fun time for a lot of these recruits, man. I talked to Glenn James, who is a friend of the podcast, was on the podcast before, Braylon James's dad, that was like, Notre Dame had a great turnout. It was like 70% Notre Dame fans in the stands for that football game. So talked a lot about, just the atmosphere, how incredible the game was. Debbie Otting and Joe Otting's mother, who's also on the podcast before, talked a lot about, the trip and just waking up on a Sunday morning with a Notre Dame victory and just how sweet it was and making that trip and everything. It was just a really awesome weekend, man, for a lot of these recruits. So I know you had the chance to talk to a couple commits as well that were on campus, and it was just a phenomenal weekend for those guys.
Yeah, I think the fandom picture-taking thing, Drake, who pretty much goes to every game, it's become normalized for him. He expects it, but it was on a much larger scale out there in Vegas. But Cam Williams was the one for me that was just kind of like, yo, this is crazy. Like, people actually knew who I was. It was like, of course, like, this is Notre Dame. And I think they had an opportunity to soak in, like, yo, this isn't even South Bend. And this is how we roll. Like, we're 2,000 miles away from South Bend, and the vibe is crazy. And he said BYU fans were loud and just added to the overall environment. So everything was fantastic, and what a better stage. There's no better stage than Allegiant Stadium. Ryan, I don't know if you've had an opportunity to visit. I hope you do at some point. It's the greatest venue to watch a football game, in my opinion, right now. Just the seating, the way it's laid out, everything, the seats they had was a perfect view for the majority of the touchdowns that Notre Dame scored. And they were just into it. All those guys were sitting together in the same section. Their parents were right there. Just a great experience. And, they moved as a unit.
Yep.
Like before the game, during the game, even after the game, talking to the fans and having access to the coaches after the game and some of the players on the team, then going out and just enjoying Vegas. That's why my response, once I got the emojis, my response was safe travel. I'll talk to you. Talk to you when you get back. Just safe travel. Because I already know you're trying to get the full experience. And it probably was a little bit different than South Bend.
Yeah, just a little bit, just a little different.
Just a little bit.
Oh man, it was just a great weekend though, man. Because like you said, Shamrock Series victory. Recruits were one thing that a couple of recruits told me as well was, Sean, like the white jerseys were even more icy in person, man. Like those things.
So we talked about that. Did you like
Yeah.
them better on TV? Did they pop for you?
Yes.
From
Yes.
the broadcast. Okay.
I think so. Yeah. I liked them, man. I actually liked them from the start. I mean, like the shoulder like gold is like a little weird to me at points, but like I thought the whites looked great, man. I really did. I liked them a lot. So and the recruits liked them a lot too, which is more important than 30-year-old Ryan Roberts liking them, right? But either way, it was really cool to see, man.
They pop. I agree with you. I agree with you. I withheld, my viewpoint on the uniforms until the broadcast, and it was immediate. Like even in the pregame, I'm watching them on the field, and I'm like, okay, those are sweet.
Yeah, man.
Those are sweet. Those are sweet. So
they were dope.
Yeah, like Bertrand said, drip. The drip was at an all-time high for Notre Dame on Saturday night.
Because I'll say this, Sean, they even had a nice contrast to the BYU uniforms, which is also pretty cool, right? Like because I actually kind of like BYU's uniforms. Like I like the royal blue, I like the blacks. Like they're nice. They're nice uniforms in my opinion. So I thought it was really nice contrast. Just I know this isn't a uniform podcast, but like let's talk it out a little bit, man. It was fun. It was a fun time. So that's what we had this past weekend, which was awesome to see. And we're going to make a real quick thing that I messed up on real quick. So Bertrand's Twitter handle, Bertrand Berry's Twitter handle is btrain92. I think I said 95 or 25 earlier. That was my fault. btrain92 on Twitter if you want to go check it out. And I already see a bunch of great questions thrown in the chat here. So we'll have a mailbag at the end. So keep throwing those in, man. We'll keep starring those throughout this podcast. Sean, another huge weekend coming up for Notre Dame. Notre Dame's going to be back at home against Stanford. We are, as we speak, continuing to add players that will be visitors. This is 2023 recruit-centric right now. There will also be some 2024 kids we anticipate. We know of one high-profile 2024 kid that will already be in attendance. So let's talk about where some of these recruits are in their recruitment, what this visit might mean for them, and what we should be kind of anticipating for this weekend on the recruiting side of things. So we reported about a week and a half ago, the biggest one on campus is of course, Jeremiah Love, 2023 running back out of Christian Brothers in St. Louis, will be back on campus for the Stanford game. We've talked a lot about how Notre Dame is trending in the great direction, but I'll say this, Sean, what a great sign for Notre Dame's chances to close this one out, because that's what they're in right now. They've been in closing time for a little bit here, but another great opportunity for Notre Dame to maybe put the finishing touches on the Jeremiah Love recruitment, I should say, this weekend against Stanford.
It's going to be fantastic, right? He'll lead somewhat of a contingent of fellow St. Louisans. I just recently found out that that's how you name the citizens of St. Louis. And it's going to be great. You've done a great job covering it, understanding the back and forth, Notre Dame being in the closing and then eventually being in a battle with Texas A&M down the stretch, and how his family's felt and how he's felt. And at the end of the day, we have all felt very strongly about Notre Dame's chances of landing in a commitment from the young man. And despite, to all the Johnny-come-latelys, we've kind of stood on that.
Yep.
And then that's, his recruitment, and I pointed this out, and he agreed. I think his recruitment is similar to Christian Gray's recruitment.
It's a decent comparison. Explain that, Sean. Expand on that.
Yeah. Early on, it was like, there was a chance like, he loves Notre Dame. There was no question. Like, he loves Notre Dame, right? Yep. And then, he gets more interest from other schools, and he starts to take trips and opens it up a little bit more. And then you start to hear the whispers about, for Christian, it was Ohio State and LSU and the relationship to, his one-time high school coach that was now the secondary coach at LSU, and how important that is to him, their relationship. And all we heard from, in particular, Mike Mickens was, he just doesn't know that he's a Notre Dame guy yet, but he will when all things are said and done. And Notre Dame just stayed with it. And it's the same thing with Jeremiah. Like, they've stayed with him through everything, whatever he had to go through, whatever process, whatever he had to think about. Okay, you need to get your parents on campus. That's important. We'll finally get them on campus. And they just stayed with him, believing that in the end, he was going to recognize that he is a Notre Dame kid.
Yep.
And that was pretty much what they knew from the start and what he knew from the start. The way their recruitment has gone is very similar. And, the fact that they have the relationship they have, that's why, when I would talk to Christian, and he would flat out say, look, he knows. He knows.
Yeah.
And Christian could say that because he had his own experience going through that same process. So,
yep. Well, this is what I love, and I've had I feel like I have a good relationship with Jeremiah and people around Jeremiah, right? So this is what I'll say about it. He is a great fit with Notre Dame, and let's talk about that, right? Great students. Yeah. He wants to go pre-med, most likely, if not engineering. Like, he is a top-notch student. He's a Northern kid. He is a dynamic athlete. Everything about Jeremiah Love, and he's very focused. He's laser focused as far as what he wants to get accomplished, right? Everything about Jeremiah Love says Notre Dame. But to your point, Sean, right? Notre Dame is getting pushed because, hey, Texas A&M really wants Jeremiah Love. Michigan, surprisingly, actually did a really good job in Jeremiah Love's recruitment. Oregon has done a good job getting in a little later than those schools, but making their late push, right?
Yeah.
And despite those pushes, and despite what you hear from clickbait media out there, Notre Dame has, in my opinion, for several months now, and especially recently, has been the leader in the clubhouse for Jeremiah Love. Now, all that being said, they need to close it down the stretch here, right? Like, they need to put the cherry on top.
Touches,
But I would not want to be any other school in this recruitment other than Notre Dame right now. So Notre Dame is in a great spot. Jeremiah Love is very, very open and very excited about the prospects of Notre Dame. Big opportunity on the Stanford game to potentially close this one. So that's where we are with Jeremiah Love, and I'm excited about it because we have a comment about how good Notre Dame's running back room could be if Jeremiah Love commits, and trust me, we will talk about that. We will talk about that here in the mailbag section of today. Sean, another big commitment. Not committed to the University of Notre Dame. That was a slip of the tongue. Another big recruit that will be on campus that is high on Notre Dame. It's early, and it's very early because Notre Dame has not offered this young man until a couple weeks ago. So he is still learning about Notre Dame. Notre Dame is still learning about him. But this is Brandon Hillman, who is a 2023 athlete out of the state of Virginia, Sean. Plays option quarterback for his team in high school. Well, not option quarterback. He's a quarterback that can run very well on the high school level. Dynamic athlete, though, that is viewed, depending on who you ask, as a running back, as a quarterback, as a wide receiver, as a linebacker, as a safety, as a rover. Doesn't matter. Regardless, he is a very, very talented athlete, potentially on the next level. Brandon Hillman gets offered a couple weeks ago by Notre Dame, and since then, Sean, Tennessee has come. A lot of schools, East Coast schools have come. Virginia Tech, Virginia. There's been a lot of schools now that are very interested in a Brandon Hillman. And I want to put this out there again because I know people have asked this several times, and I just want to reiterate it again because it's a great question. Does this have anything to do with where they stand with Jeremiah Love? Well, no, it doesn't. They want Brandon Hillman as an athlete in this class, right? So he's not, maybe he ends up as a running back. They don't know, though. They don't know. So that, with that being said, Sean, Notre Dame wants Brandon Hillman in this class. He is absolutely a take for Notre Dame as we speak. Absolutely. So a big opportunity because Brandon Hillman has never been to campus at Notre Dame yet. So him coming up for an visit to South Bend, we're going to really see very quickly where Brandon Hillman has, like how much interest he has and where this fit could potentially be if Notre Dame's able to hit this one out of the park.
This weekend could be one of those weekends that you never thought would be a big weekend. But looking back on it in December, when guys are finally sending in their letters of intent, you're like, okay, that was one of the key weekends in the fall for Notre Dame from a recruiting standpoint. And getting this young man on campus, look, I love his defensive film just about as much as I love his quarterback film. Like, you see the athleticism, hurdling guys, running long touchdowns, delivering blows as a safety. The kid can do it all. Very athletic, rangy. Like, if you put him on the defensive side of the ball, he can be rangy. And I'm sure you, with your mind, you can already see whether, oh man, we could put him at Rover, we could put him here. He can make an impact. I just think the overall depth that is being built from a roster standpoint is just absolutely insane. It's just insane. Like, I will be honest with you, Ryan. I will look at the returning skill positions, and look at the incoming skill positions. And I wouldn't mind if Drew Pine and Tyler Buckner walked out into the field in the spring with swords in their hands. Because I would battle to the depth to be the one throwing to all of these different weapons as a quarterback, Nick. I will be willing to die on the field to win that starting job, as gifted as Notre Dame is going to be and as talented and fast as they're going to be at the skill positions next season. It's going to be absolutely amazing if things go the way we believe they could end up, and they close the deal with guys like Hillman, Jeremiah Love on campus, heck, Ryan Wingo coming to campus, possibly joining the 24 class. The list goes on and on. But we could look back at the Stanford weekend and say it was one of the most important weekends from a recruiting standpoint when things are all said and done.
Yeah, it's going to be very important for the 2023 class. We'll talk a lot about the Clemson game. Obviously, that's going to be – I mean, there's going to be 2023 kids on campus, obviously, and most commits will be on campus. That's going to be the biggest recruiting weekend of the year. But I think that one, when we're talking about what it impacts most, we're going to be talking about the 2024 class, right? Like, that's going to be the class that you're like, okay. Because 2023 will be pretty much filled out at that point. I mean, there's going to be a couple guys in Notre Dame still going to be recruiting. But, again, we'll see where it goes with this one. But I agree with you, Sean. Brandon Hillman, like literally whatever college you're talking about, right? Whether you're talking about the new offers, the old offers, there are some colleges that legitimately see him as a quarterback. There are some colleges that legitimately see him as a running back. There's some that see him as an offensive weapon, a wide receiver. I see him similar to you, where I'd be like, man, I would love to put him at Rover and let him be Jeremiah Wusu-Koramoah, right? Like that's what I see with him. But regardless, someone asked on this show, trying to find the comment real quick because it was a good question. Here it is. It was from Irish Mojo 25 that said, what position are they looking at Hillman for? And the answer, Irish Mojo, is they don't know, right? Like, it's whatever he ends up being, they'll let it happen. He is going to be an athlete in this class, and wherever he fits, man. Like, he could end up at running back. He could end up on defense. I don't know. And I don't think the staff knows either. From everything that I've gathered, I don't think the staff has said, like, this is the position we definitely want you at. They love the versatility. They refer to him as an athlete. This is an athlete that you want to work with and develop, right? So that's Brandon Hillman. Last guy I want to talk about, Sean, which is and let me just pull this one up because it's a good question, a follow-up from Irish Mojo, who said, does Hillman have a preference? So Irish Mojo, from what we have been told and gathered, for a long time, Hillman wanted to just be a quarterback, okay? He wanted to be a quarterback. So his offer list wasn't expansive, right? But recently, probably last month or so, he is completely open to playing whatever position gets him on the field. So he has thrown away the quarterback thing. Like, if you want him to play me a quarterback, awesome. But he is open to playing any position that a team feels could be a benefit to them, right? Yeah. So that's where we are with Brandon Hillman. A lot of different spots, potentially. So, Sean, last guy, and you mentioned him already, that we have for sure going to be on campus. And again, the visitor list at boards.irishbreakdown.com is going to be expanding over the next couple of days because we expect a few more visitors that are going to be there for the Stanford game, both 2023 and 2024 alike. But the last humongous visitor on campus is Ryan Wingo, 2024 wide receiver out of St. Louis University, of course, in St. Louis, Missouri. Sean,
Right.
we've talked a whole lot about, hey, Jeremiah Love potentially, Christian Gray, flashback to Gabriel Rubio. We're talking about Ryan Wingo now in the 2024 class. We can talk about Jeremiah McClellan, the Christian Brothers wide receiver in 2024 that Notre Dame likes as well. Let's talk Ryan Wingo, man. This is now going to be the 4th time on campus, I believe, for Ryan Wingo. So, again, man, I know it's not like a crazy far trip, but people keep asking, is Notre Dame a legit contender for Ryan Wingo? And I keep coming back to, why would he have been on campus so many times if they weren't a legit contender, man? There is real interest here for Ryan Wingo. I'm not calling them the front runner, because I'll say this. There's a lot of teams that would love to have a Ryan Wingo. He's a 5-star caliber player for a reason, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that he keeps making the trip back should tell you all you know. Actions speak louder than words. Yes,
Absolutely.
Notre Dame is in on Ryan Wingo.
Absolutely. And I'll give you this little tidbit. There might be one more wide receiver from the St. Louis area coming. 2024 teammate of Jeremiah Love, wide receiver Jeremiah McClellan from Christian Brothers as well, might be making a trip. We're waiting for him to solidify those plans. And also, there will be a St. Louis photo shoot. I've been told that. There will be a St. Louis photo shoot of all 4 recruits from St. Louis. They're expected to be at the Stanford game. So that should be exciting. Can't wait for those pictures to hit social media sometime, probably Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon. When you talk about Ryan Wingo, some view him definitely number 1 at the position in the country in the 24 class, but more than anything else, he's top 5. It's based upon your preference, based upon the publications. Top 5 wide receiver, top 50 kid in the nation. When he starts to make that many trips, that lets you know. And he has a great relationship with Cam Williams. Great relationship with Cam Williams. I was talking to Cam, asking if he was going to be at the Stanford game. He said yes. He didn't know Ryan was coming. And as soon as he found out, he was like, I'm calling him right now. So they continue to build a great relationship. If those are the first 2 receivers you get in 24, Williams and Wingo, I'm cool with that law firm leading the way. I'm very cool with that law firm leading the way. But like you said, Ryan, him coming and reading the tea leaves, that is his actions, you have to feel really good about where Notre Dame sits in terms of landing the 5-star wide receiver out of St. Louis University in St. Louis, Missouri. And just his relationship with Cam Williams and CJ Carr as well bodes well.
And I'll also put this out there, and I am listen to what I'm saying. Do not misconstrue what I'm saying. Do not turn my words around here, okay? All I'll say here is that if Notre Dame signs Jeremiah Love, if he gets a commitment for Jeremiah Love, that will be a huge momentum boost for the Ryan Wingo commitment. I mean,
Yes.
recruitment, okay?
Yes.
Again, it's not a 1-for-1. It's not a partner deal here. I'm not saying that. It's not a joint thing. What I'm saying though is that Jeremiah Love and Ryan Wingo do have a relationship, and it will help the recruitment. That's all I'm saying. Okay. So we'll see what happens. But again, feel pretty good about where Notre Dame is with Ryan Wingo as it stands. Long way away from being over, obviously. And again, we're not calling Notre Dame a front runner, just saying that they'll be in it until the end, in my opinion. We had a question for Irish Mojo, another great question. Irish Mojo 25 said, any idea on Wingo's timeline? Last time I talked to someone close to Ryan Wingo, Irish Mojo, it was next spring, summer commitment before senior year. That was kind of what they're looking at, right? So we got a little bit of time until Ryan Wingo makes a decision, but that's kind of where we're sitting as we currently are. So, Sean, that's the visitor list for this week so far, man. Again, there's a lot of things that will be figured out as far as final 2023-2024 guys that will be on campus for the Stanford game. But as of right now, again, go to the visitor list at boards.irishbreakdown.com and you'll keep updated as far as what commits will be on campus, what visitors, what uncommitted players, 2023, 2024, 2025. We'll even have all that stuff updated for you all. So make sure to check out the board there at irishbreakdown.com. All right, Sean, last part of the recruiting show for today that I want to cover before we hit the mailbag. Again, keep throwing in those questions in the mailbag. We'll hit a lot of those today. Want to talk, as we always do, about the standouts from high school football this past weekend. Notre Dame commits in the 2023 and 2024 class. Week 7 update. I put the piece out this morning. I'm putting it in the chat right now in case anybody wants to see it or wants to follow along. Because again, I am a visual learner. I'm not an audible learner, so I like to look at things as I kind of listen. Right. So, Sean, it was another impressive week for Notre Dame commits in action for high school football. I guess first and foremost, man, it's not in this piece. I think that we should talk real quick about CJ Carr having a little bit of a rough one this past weekend and his team losing 7-0. All right. I think CJ Carr went like 6 of 20 or something like that in this football game. It was not a good showing, man. And he had like 5 straight weeks of really good football. It was a down week for CJ Carr. So let's just throw that out there. Let's leave it there. I know people are going to overreact to it, but CJ Carr's been very good for the majority of the season, but he did not have his best one, obviously, this past weekend.
No, by no means did he have, I've seen some of the best Midwest high school quarterbacks come through the Chicago area. I've gone to Indianapolis and watched kids, Wisconsin. These games happen. Right. And then you get so geeked, in our business, you get so geeked to finally go watch a kid in person. And then you get a performance like this one, and you're like, okay, I don't really know how to report on this other than stats and just kind of just let it lie there. And that's, we just have to let this stinker just lay there, and eventually the stench will go away. Right. 100%. If you keep stirring it up, then the aroma will stay there for a while. So we're just going to let this stinker stay there. Eventually it'll dry up, go away, and we'll get back to seeing the CJ Carr that we expect to continue to grow into the 5-star quarterback that most people believe that he is.
Don't overreact. I know it's impossible for us out there, but please do not overreact to this. It's just one bad game. Want to talk about a really fun game, though, Sean. OTR Trucker Joe put it out there, and that was actually where we wanted to start here on the positive notes of Notre Dame's recruiting performances from past weekend. That Derby versus Mays game was insane. Yeah. Sean, it sure was. This game, I have the stats here, right? So he's talking about Mays High School and Derby. Derby, of course, is the home of 2023 wide receiver commits, but plays running back on the level, Dylan Edwards. Their team fell 1 point short, 52-51, 103 points scored, Sean. And on the day, these offenses totaled for over 1,000 yards of total offense. So they were pretty good. It was a pretty entertaining football game. This past weekend, Mays came out on top. If Mays sounds familiar to Notre Dame fans also, it is the school of Avery Johnson, who's a 2023 quarterback that Notre Dame is still in talks with, right? Still trying to potentially get him to flip, but he is committed as of right now to Kansas State, to the Wildcats. So in this game, Sean, Dylan Edwards, 192 total yards and 2 more touchdowns. I mean, he's just on a tear this season, man. He's averaging over 10 yards a pop, has like almost 900 rushing yards so far this season for the team that is now, I think they are 5-2 on the season or 4-2 on the season.
Yeah.
Also in this game, though, I wanted to highlight, outside of just highlighting Dylan Edwards, Avery Johnson had 531 total yards and 7 touchdowns in this game, Sean. He erased. Mays was down 20 points at one point in this game, came back and led the game-winning drive with less than a minute left. So this was a ridiculous game, this Mays and Derby game for this past weekend, 52-51 in favor of Mays.
Can you imagine the conversations that was going on that field? Because they didn't face each other, like Jeremiah Love and Christian being able to be on the field at the same time, offensively and defensively. Mm-hmm. Both of these guys are offensive players. But can you imagine, like, pregame, sideline talking? Like, yeah, okay. It's a great, fantastic game. I wish I had been in the building. Because you just love to see those type of games. It could have been a 24-25 game, but it would have been a great game. The fact that it was high scoring and you had the comeback and you had the performance by Edwards and Avery Johnson, those things just added to a classic. And you come up with a win like that, you tip your cap to Avery Johnson and just let them know on the way out, okay, you're just going to the wrong school. That's all. That's fantastic. We appreciate how you played tonight. Just need to change where you're going. That's all.
Yep. Sean, I posted a link in this piece under the Dylan Edwards section. Taylor Eldridge on Twitter at Taylor Eldridge put this nasty cut that he had in this game where it was just.
I saw that. It was ridiculous.
It was dumb, man. It was just dumb. Dumb.
And you say to yourself, oh boy, once again, I'm telling you, Ryan, if I could, what was the name of the show where Scott Bakula would not Scott Bakula, but he would transfer or like time travel into someone else's body. And what was the name of that show? It was back in the 80s.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about? Like if that happened to me and I ended up in either Drew Pines or Tyler Buckner's body and I experienced next year's camp, I'm telling you, like, yo, I'm coming after you. That's just how much talent is coming. Quantum leap. Yes.
Quantum leap.
Thanks, guys. Yo, you have to be super excited. And I know they have to focus on this season. So they're not thinking about that right now. But
now we got a lot of people that are Quantum Leap fans, apparently.
Yeah, I see that. I see it. Yeah, his first name was Scott. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's fun. That's funny though, man. Hopefully, Sean, though, if you do make that transition, hopefully you get the trust of the staff in a decent amount of time. All right. Moving on. I have also seen Quantum Leap, though. That was a good reference by you. It was a good reference. All right, so let's go to the next performance, Sean. Jaden Greathouse's team, Westlake, continues their undefeated stretch. They defeated Anderson 66-17, of course, out of the state of Texas. Sean, I wanted to throw this one in because it was not a gaudy stat line for Jaden Greathouse in this game because he was out by halftime. It was just a ridiculous game for the Westlake team. But Sean, 6 straight victories now for this team, including the last 3 state championships. But the thing that got him on the list is that Jaden held in his 200th career reception while a member of the varsity team for Westlake. And he also caught his 49th touchdown or 49th total touchdown in his career, Sean. So he is 1 touchdown away from 50 on the in his career, and he hit his 200th career reception. So quick celebration of the career of Jaden Greathouse at Westlake, man. He has just been a dude since he was a freshman there.
You think they're going to retire his jersey one day?
Oh, yes. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. No doubt about it.
I think so. And that's I think he definitely will have the most or the highest expectations from the fan base, from that group. In totality, might he have the highest expectations in the 23 class?
Immediately.
Other than Peyton, probably?
Immediately. On the offensive side of the football, I think that people are going to expect Jaden Greathouse to come in and play very quickly. Yeah, I do. Yeah. And all I'll say is this, folks, and I'm not throwing shade at the coaching staff right now, but having talked to Jaden Greathouse, if there is some BS that Jaden Greathouse can't pick up the playbook in a decent amount of time, don't want to hear it. Just don't want to hear it. That kid is exceptionally bright. I do not want to hear it. Football smart, in the classroom smart. He is, I think that Jaden, you have immediate potential for Greathouse to come in and play a lot of football. So, yes. Big time performance. Again, congratulations, Jaden, because I know he does listen to the show sometimes. So congratulations, Jaden, if you're listening on 200th career reception and 49th touchdown of your career. And good luck next week as you play Dripping Springs, Springs, Sean, is also 6-0. So should be a nice little test, and he potential for his 50th career touchdown. So congratulations, Jaden. Moving on. Braylon James, Sean, 2 straight losses for Stony Point. They lost to Cedar Ridge 44-20. But I wanted to throw this one in there because Braylon James has been on a nice tear the last couple games. He had 5 catches for 180 yards last game. This past week, he had 7 catches for 90 more yards and another touchdown in this loss. On the season, he has 21 receptions for 468 yards and 4 touchdowns. That is 22.3 yards per reception. And how impressive that is, Sean, is that last year he had like 47 catches for like 500-something yards when he was still a part of Del Valley. He has had a phenomenal season. He's shown his ability to win at the catch point, down the football field, and creating explosive plays. So happy that he's having a lot of success. Another impressive week for Braylon James. And also, again, he made the trip out to Vegas. So got to see him in Vegas too, which was pretty cool to see.
I'm jealous of these kids making this Vegas trip.
Right.
I'm going to be honest with you. Yeah, man. Oh, wow, man. 17 in Vegas. Must be nice. But like you said, Braylon James, once again, I think you talked about it pretty consistently. Probably the higher ceiling of the wide receiver group. Mm-hmm. And, you know, of course, he's not at a top-notch program. He's at a good program, but nowhere near, you know, the program, Westlake.
It's not Westlake.
Programs like that, no. So, you know, but you talk about locked in. Mm-hmm. Kids are just locked in. Like, you can point to this, Ryan, and this is like no disrespect to the task at hand for most of these guys. Mm-hmm. All the guys I cover and I talk to, if I ask them today, you can end your high school season and go start training in South Bend, would you do it? 50% of the class would probably do it. 50% of the kids are probably like, yeah, you can forget the rest of high school. I'm good. Just let me go right now and start training from our freshman year. That's how locked in they are to Notre Dame. Like, they're still going out, performing, doing what they have to do, but they are so ready to be a part of the program. And when you start feeling that and hearing that from these guys, man, you get excited about the future for the program.
Absolutely. Want to answer this from Drunk Video real quick. This is, what is he drinking? Because he said, I have a lot of energy right now. I'm drinking water, sir. That's all I need. Natural energy, baby.
You're not an energy drink guy, are you?
No, I was when I was in college, and then I figured out how bad energy drinks are for you. So I stopped very quickly. I stopped drinking soda. So, you know, just more of a iced tea water kind of guy nowadays. So,
yeah,
you know.
I was a Mountain Dew guy in college to stay up for tests.
I used to love Mountain Dew back in the day. I used to drink the when I was in college. I used to drink the energy drink, the Tilts, or is it Mountain Dew Tilt or whatever it is? But yeah. So that stuff is delicious, man. That Mountain Dew energy drink was phenomenal. That's
that Incredible Hulk stuff. Like,
yeah, man. No, it was good though. It was really good. Might need to get one of those one day soon just to relive. Cam Williams, Sean, Glenbard South defeated West Chicago 41-8. Sean, what can't Cam Williams do, man? Can we just start there? I mean, so hey, he just had on the offense side of the ball, and again, they dominated this game, so they didn't need him a ton on the offensive side of the football. But my man had 3 catches for 97 yards. 2 of them went for touchdowns.
Oh man.
And Sean, even I wouldn't say more impressively, because he had 2 long touchdown catches, 33 and a 50 and a 43 yarder in this game. But he also played defense and had 2 interception returns for touchdowns, 1 for 28, 1 for 69. Yeah. So my guy on 4 plays had 173 yards and 4 touchdowns in this game. Cam Williams is a pretty good football player, man. He's decent player.
He's all right.
Man.
He's all right. But no, all things aside, man, his team and his performance right now, to be honest, they've hit the part of their schedule where they want to go out, perform, and stay healthy, right? Most teams in the state of Illinois have like 2 games left on their schedule. There's a lot of jockeying going on for playoffs. Teams are fighting for their playoff viability and their lives, and they feel comfortable with where they are. They know these last 2 games are going to dictate whether or not they get the conference championship, which is going to be huge and will play into their seeding. So, yeah, it's very important right now. 2 biggest games on their schedule. coming up. And if he continues to do what he's been doing in these last 2 games, we already think he's the real deal, right? And I think going into the summer, you're going to see his ranking continue to go up nationally because people are starting to see the film and see who this kid really is, because nationally, you see Glenn Bard, Illinois, and like, all right. But now you look at not just the numbers, but what he's doing on film and the multiple ways he's able to score and how great he is with the ball in his hands and how he's improved as a route runner, which he pointed out is the main thing he took from the Irish invasion in his time with Chancey Stuckey. He's becoming an all-around great playmaker, not just wide receiver, just a playmaker. And only to think that he has another full year to get even better before he gets to college. Good things to come.
And Cam's listed, despite only being junior, at 6'2", 6'3", somewhere in that ballpark, 185 pounds. Great frame, Sean. And the thing that Notre Dame loved, outside of just the talents on the field, is he also ran 4.47, I believe, at a Notre Dame camp as well. So my guy can run. He's long. He's athletic. I'm going to say something, Sean. I just want you to react to it. Immediate reaction. Ready? I do not think it's I don't think that it's a big push to say that at the end of the day, there's a really talented 2024 wide receiver group. We talked about Ryan Wingo a ton. Fantastic player. Talked about Micah Hudson in the past out of Texas, who's a fantastic football player. Breedell Richardson, really good football player. There's a lot of talented receivers in the 2024 class. I would not be shocked if Cam Williams is eventually a 5-star and the number 1 receiver in the country in 2024. I would not be shocked. I wouldn't. I think he's that talented. I do.
Out of your words to the heavens. Like that's pretty much what I was saying. You went further and just kind of like stepped on top of the words that I put out there. You're absolutely right. I mean, look, the question was always nationally hasn't been seen. That's really what it was. Nationally hasn't been seen. And now he's picking up that buzz. Cam really hasn't been as big camping as far as some other kids. And, he'll go around and do some more 7-on-7 stuff this summer and get out there a little bit more. First of all, because nationally there's going to be more requests for certain tournaments for him to come and show up. Because like I said, he's going to continue to ascend up the rankings. The 5-star wouldn't shock me at all. No. Wouldn't shock me at all. But like you said, that race to number 1 as far as the wide receiver group in 24, he has a lot of good company. A lot of good company, starting with his own guy that he's forming a relationship with, Ryan Wingo. So it wouldn't shock me.
I'm interested to see that race, man, because it is a crowded wide receiver room in 2024 nationally. I mean, I even mentioned guys like Tysier Denmark and it's the in-state kids, right? Like it's just so many talented players in 2024 as far as pass catchers. And Notre Dame's off to a good start with a Cam Williams, obviously. Yeah. So last guy I want to talk about, Sean, before we get to the mailbag. We talked a lot about Dylan Edwards, who is a wide receiver in the Notre Dame career potentially, who plays running back right now for his high school. I want to talk about another player who Notre Dame sees at a different position than what he currently mostly plays in high school. We're going to talk about Micah Bell, who is a cornerback recruit out of the Kincaid School in Texas. They defeated St. Mark's 49-14 this past weekend, Sean. And like I said, Micah Bell plays defense in high school. He does. But he made his biggest impact in this football game at running back. Ran for, Sean, 161 yards and 2 touchdowns. Okay, 161. It's a great number. More importantly, more impressively, he did 161 yards on 10 carries. Yeah. Which is 16.1 yards per carry. That's easy. That's simple math, right? You just move over the decimal, blah, 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 blah. 16.1 yards per rush in this game for Micah Bell. Not yards per reception, not yards per punt return, yards per rush in this football game. Micah Bell, we don't talk about him enough. Dynamic 4.3 speed. He is an absolute baller at his level, and I am very much looking forward to seeing what he does a part of the Notre Dame program.
Absolutely. And I was watching I think it was last week he won the I forget, it was an award, a prep award from a local station down in Texas for High School Player of the Week with his performance on both sides of the ball. And it was just funny hearing him talk about his older brother, because this is his first season playing without his older brother, who went on to college. And, and just talking about, the impact of, making his own name. And that was one of the reasons why Notre Dame intrigued him so much, is because everything he's done up to this point has been with his brother. And this season, he's had an opportunity to kind of forge his own name. And he's looking at Notre Dame as that opportunity as well, as getting out of the state of Texas, getting ready to forge his own name and walk his own path. And dude, the word for the 23 class is speed, right?
A lot of
like
speed.
You wanted to improve speed on the Notre Dame roster. That's what you have.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere too, Sean. Again, man, we talked about it. If Notre Dame gets Jeremiah Love, that's a legit 4.4 high type of athlete. Jaden Lamar has been timed in the high 4.4s, low 4.5s. He can run. Braylon James is a 4.47 electronical timed guy. Jalen Edwards has been electronically timed in the 4.3s.
Yeah.
Jaden Greathouse is the slow guy. Okay. He's the slow guy, right? Charles Jagasaw is a freak in nature at the offensive line position. Sullivan Absher can move for his size as well. Defensively, Micah Bell is a 4.3 athlete. Peyton Bowen has also been timed in the high 4.3s, low 4.4s. So many guys that can run, man. They can all just run. Drake Bowen is no slouch either, man. He can run as well. There's a lot of speed coming, and that's not even including guys. I mentioned Jeremiah Love, but Tayshawn Lyons. If Notre Dame's able to get Tayshawn Lyons out of Hayward in Tennyson High School in Hayward, California, that's another legit high 4.4, low 4.5 type of dude. Notre Dame has a lot of speed coming to the program. I know it's easy to just kind of, I don't want to say, obsess over, but they lost out on Keon Keeley, who decommitted, right? They lost out on Dante Moore, who was silently committed to Notre Dame and decided to end up going to Oregon, right? There's been misses in this class, but even though there's misses, Notre Dame still has incredible talent coming to in the 2023 class. So can we just be happy about that a little bit? Just be happy about that. So
look, when it comes to this coaching staff, and I don't excuse things that happened in the first two games by any means.
Sure.
We talk about recruiting, development, improvement week to week. You have to feel really good about the overall performance of this coaching staff. It's just about every positional coach has hit a home run in recruiting in the 23 class, except for Tommy Rees, who's over the quarterbacks. That's really the only one, but Tommy Rees has been involved with so many other skill position guys in their recruiting that you still have to give him credit. That's the only thing missing. And if Notre Dame finds a way to flip one of these big time quarterbacks, they'll be a top 3 class. It's as simple as that. They will end up a top 3 class, in my opinion. Top 5 for sure.
Yep. And I'll say this, quarterback, we've started to hear a little bit of a couple more names that might be out there in the quarterback class. We cannot put those out there because we just can't at the moment. But there are some names that'll be surfacing in the pretty near future as far as quarterback board for Notre Dame. So make sure, again, boards at irishbreakdown.com. That's where you'll hear the news first as far as what quarterbacks may be on the board. And yes, they are still talking to Avery Johnson. They are still talking to Kenny Minchie. They are still trying their best to make those flips happen. But there also is a couple other really talented quarterbacks that I've had the chance to watch the film on already, by the way, that are exceptionally talented, that I'm interested to see if Notre Dame can get in with. So keep an eye out for that, boards.irishbreakdown.com. That, though, is going to do this segment of the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour. We're going to get to the mailbag next. Before we do, you could like this video, share this podcast, hit that notification bell, and, of course, if you are on your favorite podcast platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever, 5-star reviews are very much appreciated. But that's going to do it for this today's Notre Dame Recruiting Hour. All right, Sean, we got a lot of mailbag questions and a little bit of time here, sir, because, there's a lot of stuff that needs to get done around here, right? We do have jobs. We do have jobs. So Let us work through some of these questions relatively quickly, but we'll, of course, give them the time that they deserve. First question, Sean, I'll go to you first. Wade Garrett said, this is early in the show, why can't our wide receivers ever get open? Every single throw is contested and requires a great catch. Are they not good enough to get open? Poorly coached? Bad scheme? What's the deal, Sean?
Wade, I've been hearing it all year. Unfortunately, my partner was able to be at the game this weekend and was able to convey to me that this whole thing about Notre Dame wide receivers not being able to be open is a bunch of crock. Notre Dame receivers were wide open all day against BYU. His exact words. The wide receivers were open. He just wasn't looking at them. He was looking at 87. And by all means, as hot as that connection was on Saturday, I have no problems with the way he stared down 87. But when you see 2 people or 3 people on them, it's time to adjust. So I always felt like that was an unfair statement because so much of that is predicated upon pre-snap read and what you look at and what you see in the progression of the quarterback. It really is. So, no. We can go back to various games. You guys look at the game film. Notre Dame receivers have been open. Mm-hmm. You guys talked about that against North Carolina. Like, receivers were open.
Yes.
So,
Marshall, Sean, I was there. I mean, Braylon James was open all day long. Weren't hitting throws. There was 1 or 2 that Braden Lindsay should have had a better adjustment on. There's a lot of reasons for it, Wade. There is. Yeah. I'll say this, though. I think wide receivers have been open in the first 2 games. I do. I mean, Braden Lindsay was open against Ohio State deep. He had multiple plays where he should have had long touchdowns against Marshall. This past weekend, there were probably 2 or 3 times, maybe more, that Lorenzo Styles had uncovered pretty deep, right? Like guys are open. It's just, there are different reasons that it didn't happen. I mean, like Sean said, Michael Mayer was having just a dumb day, right? So it's like, I'm going to hyper-focus on him a little bit.
Yeah.
So but there's been some quarterback issues at times over the first few games. There's been some wide receiver concentration issues. There's been some scheme stuff. So to answer your question, I think it's a little bit of everything, Wade, but I do push back, and I know Sean did obviously push back as well. I don't think that it is just as simple as wide receivers can't get open. I think that there's a reason that wide receivers have not been as effective or as productive as they can be. So we'll just leave it at that. Hopefully it changes. We're going to live in the future, not in the past, but we'll see what happens. They'll need them, though. Against Clemson, against USC, against some of the better teams that will be playing here in the new future. If you're Notre Dame, you'll need the wide receivers to start playing more impactful football.
Yep.
Great question, though. Great question. Mailbag question from USMA87. Coach Bayless gets a ton of praise as the strength and conditioning coach. Why does it look like we don't have conditioning? Defense looks gassed and did not play that many snaps. Sean, I don't think this is a Matt Bayless problem, right? It was weird, though. Notre Dame only played 40-something plays, and the defense did look gassed at time last game. It was weird to watch. It was a little weird.
Now, this is North Carolina. Let's take the last 2 games. I think sometimes we take lack of focus and just bad play as looking gassed. Like Gabriel Rubio getting smashed on that touchdown run had nothing to do with him being gassed. He just got beat. He just got beat. And lack of focus and on the same play. I have no clue what J.D. Bertrand was doing. He took a full step to the right. The play is going this way. He took a full step this way before trying to correct himself. And of course, he gets eaten up by the block. So that has nothing to do with being gassed. That's just poor execution, poor focus.
Bad communication on Saturday. Too.
Bad communication, not getting lined up when they went tempo, all of that. Like, they look gassed because they struggle with tempo, right?
Yeah.
And so teams go to tempo and it's like, oh my God, the defense looks gas. No, they're confused.
Yeah.
They're confused
and when
at
you're
some point.
it's a great point. When you're confused and you don't trust what you see, you play slow, and that can look sluggish to your point.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I don't think it has anything to do with strength and conditioning. It's just
I agree.
Look, I had a chance to talk, which is funny. I had a chance to talk to Pete Bursich today.
Mm-hmm.
And I just flat out asked him, please give me the line back in 101. Give it to me, please. And he said, look, man, if you make a mistake, make it 100 miles per hour. That's it. Like, don't give me all of this thinking and no. Read, trust what you see, and go. And if you hit it wrong, we can deal with that.
Sean, when I coached, that was the one thing I always told the guys, because I was a defensive coach, right? So like, you're going to be out of position, you're going to make bad reads, you're going to have a slow trigger at times. Like, it's going to happen, right? If you're going to make a mistake, make it a fast one.
Yeah.
That's it, man. Yeah. Like, if you're going to make a mistake, make it a fast one. Yeah. To your point, trust what you see and go 100 miles an hour. And usually good things happen. Even if you're out of position at times, usually you can make up for it, right? The worst thing that any player could ever do is to be confused and just kind of sit there, right? Like, oh, I don't know what I'm looking at. And then you freeze and you don't move. Like, that happens all the time, man. It is not this is not a Notre Dame thing. This is a general just football player thing. I've seen it countless times on the high school level, on the college level, even on the NFL. It happens where guys just don't know what they're doing and they just get stuck in mud. They don't know where they're going. Are they slow? No. It's nothing to do with speed. It's nothing to do with athleticism. It's just they don't know what they're looking at, man. Like, they're just confused. So I agree with you. Having a deep understanding of what is expected of you, what the expectations are, and what your job is makes guys play fast. There's a lot of players. I think of like Zach Thomas that used to play with the Miami Dolphins, right? I think of Scooby Wright that played at the University of Arizona. They were not fast players, but they were incredibly instinctive, and they knew their job, and they looked like they were running 100 miles an hour, even though they were not very great athletes.
That's one of the things he said. Knowing what you're supposed to do, knowing what the opponent is trying to do, and your technique will make you play faster. He's like, you don't have to be the fastest guy, but if you do these things, you'll play faster. And right now, I don't care about the linebackers 40 times. They're playing slow. Playing slow. Yep. And Ryan, you're the draft guy. That's like processing, pre-snap, not believing in what you see. It's like all of that comes into play. We consistently see one guy play with his hair on fire on film at that position. One.
His name's Prince. His name's Prince. Yeah.
So hopefully things change. But at this point, you're a captain, you're a senior, and you're taking like false steps and like playing passively and in between.
Yeah, Sean, it's frustrating, man, because it was an interesting comment. It was an interesting comment during the show when someone asked if Maris was still injured, and I'm like, I don't think he looks slow. I think he's playing slow. Like, that's different, man. That's much different, but interesting. Yeah. It's a good conversation piece, though. It's a good conversation piece. Let's go to this comment real quick from Irish Mojo 25. This was during when Bertrand Berry was still on the show. If you didn't hear that in the beginning of the show, make sure you go back and check out the interview with Bertrand Berry, former Notre Dame great, former Arizona Cardinal, 12-year pro, said we should add Bertrand to IB Nation. Love the content. I agree, man. Let's get him on irishbreakdown.com. Bring him over. I would love Bertrand on IB Nation. See someone CC Brian Driscoll on that comment. All right. And let's get him over. All right, Sean. So let's go to Chief Brody. This one was to me, but again, we'll talk this one out. Hey, Ryan, will the wide receivers get going this season or no? LOL. So, I mean, we just talked about this, right, Sean? I think that they'll have to, right? Like, they'll be forced to. If they don't, then I think Notre Dame will lose a game or two more. Like, that's just where it comes down to, right? But I think Notre Dame will need them to. Will they? I have no idea. I again, as put on my fan goggles for a second, put on my fan hat. Notre Dame's going to need their wide receivers. They're going to need them. So I hope so, Chief, but I don't know. I don't know, man. Just don't know.
Well, based upon the previous question, if the trend remains, stays firm and holds on November 5th, Notre Dame receivers will be running wide open because every other receiving core has been running wide open against Clemson. So that's if everything holds true to form, receivers will be open against Clemson. It's just a matter of pulling the trigger, improving coaching. I'm going to take, based upon what Marcus Freeman said today, IB Nation, I'm going to follow his lead. Coach him. If his pre-snap reads aren't right, coach him. It's not on the players. It's on us. That's what Marcus Freeman said. He said, I don't throw players under the bus. We have to coach better. So guess what? That quarterback position, in order to elevate the wide receivers, along with Chancey Stuckey in the wide receiver room, they have to be coached better to get better in anticipation of that November schedule. So, yes, I think they've been going. And I think Jaden Thomas, great story that Don Merriweather tweeted out about Jaden Thomas's mom being in tears after he scored that touchdown. It just, that's college football, man. You can't beat that stuff.
You can't.
No, you can't.
It's been a struggle for Jaden a little bit, right? I also felt the same about Logan Diggs 2 games ago. Logan Diggs was having a rough start to the season, man. The last 2 games, he's balling out. Good for him,
balling out, gaining confidence. You can see it. Him and Aldrich. Look, I heard people bring up the photograph the running backs posted this weekend and how Jadarian Price is looking. And look,
did you see that picture? Did you see the picture? Oh my God. I'm not trying to fangirl over a college athlete here, man, but yeesh. And a picture that included Aldrich Estime, Jadarian Price looked yoked, man. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Can you say he's had a lot of time to focus on his upper body?
Yes, he has.
During his injury.
Sean, he has not missed chest and shoulders day, man. Like, he has not missed it. He's been hitting his curls, brother. He's been hitting them.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Jadarian, if Jadarian can hold that weight and still maintain the speed he has too, man, yeesh. I can't wait to see. Great question, though, Chief. Again, we'll see. I want to bring this one up, Sean, because I don't know the answer to this, so I just wanted to bring it up for Zach because I saw he had a question a couple of times. I don't know the answer to this one. It says, Ryan, what is the NFL equivalent to MLB's 10 years of service where you receive pension, health care, etc.? I'm not sure, Zach, if I'm being honest, right? I have a bunch of friends, though, that are NFL players or former players and scouts and, different things. So I'll get an answer for you, though. So ask this to me maybe next week, and I will try to find an answer to this question. So I wanted to pull it up, though, Zach.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe I think it was lowered. It used to be 8 years. Now I think it has been lowered for certain situations, and of course, everything with head traumas and everything that's been talked about. I think it's been lowered to 6, and I know you can't start receiving your pension. I know this for sure. You have to be 35 to start receiving your pension. So, but dig deeper into it. But I think those are 2 things that I know for sure.
Yeah, and I see people saying 4 years of service. Again, like, you might be right. I have no idea.
Back in the day, it was really tough because I think it was at one point it was like 8, which was crazy. Like, I had to play 8 years in this game to get a pension. Yeah, but the one thing I know for sure is that you can't start pulling from pension or receiving one until you hit 35.
Makes sense. We had Irish Mojo 25 said, where can I find that pic of the running backs? Go to Dylan McCullough's Twitter, Irish Mojo. He posted a picture, I think 2 days ago. Maybe it was yesterday. Can't remember. But yeah, it was after the victory. He posted a picture of the running back group. So go take a look. It was impressive, man. Again, like, Chris Tyree is listed at 5'9", 197 pounds, Sean. If he's 197 pounds, then all these dudes are 215 plus, man. Like they all looked massive next to Chris Tyree. So yeah. So go take a look at that. Irish Mojo. I would go take a look at that.
Yeah.
So let's go to this question from Irish Blooded. I got to ask because I really want to know if you are a recruiting wide, and I'm going to kick this one to you, Sean, to start this conversation. If you are recruiting wide receiver right now, what is your selling point? Because, man, I want them here, but there isn't much to show them right now on the field. So, Sean, you're the coach. You are Chancey Stuckey. You are Tommy Rees, whoever. What's your selling point to some of these talented receiver recruits?
First of all, we're going to remove Jason Garrett from the booth. That's what we're going to do. So you're going to have to hear him talk about how wide receivers aren't used in Notre Dame. All right. That's the first thing. And then secondly, the pitch is you're playing. Like, don't forget all of that stuff. You're playing.
Yeah.
And we're going to use you. You're playing and we're going to use you. And things are going to be different and evolve. Yes, we play the way we play now because that's the way we have to play to win games. Mm-hmm. When you get here, we won't have to play the same way. Now we can use you, and we can use you, and we can put you in this position.
You're the answer. You're the answer to our problems, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, man. I know it's just, we're seeing a really talented wide receiver in the freshman class right now that can't get on the field, Sean. So it's frustrating, man. But I agree with you. I think that has to be the selling point, right? It has to be. You're the answer. This is what we want to do. We can't do it right now, but help us be a part of the solution to the problem, right? Yeah. So I think that's the selling point. Great conversation. Great. Love it. Next question is going to go to Michael Johnson, who said, does a game like BYU and Vegas bring some recruits back that were on the fence? This is interesting, Sean. So I'll say this, Michael. It's a very appealing game for a couple different reasons. One, playing in Vegas is cool, right? That's dope. The uniforms are dope. Those things will appeal to recruits. They won the football game. They now have a 3-game winning streak after starting the season off. Not a great note. Everything is trending in the right direction. Looks great. And we know that if you watch the last 2 football games Notre Dame's played, they should have won by more. Like, they outclassed these teams from a talent level perspective, which is awesome to see. So there's a lot of good things. But in this direct instance, I don't know the answer to this one just because look, if a Notre Dame recruit, let's say in the 2023 class, has been on the fence and has already said no, like, I don't think there's any recruit right now that Notre Dame is in on that I would say is on the fence that isn't leaning towards Notre Dame. I would say it's either you're almost in or you're not in at all, right? So could it get a couple guys that are, maybe we're kind of ruling out Notre Dame early and make it more appealing or close the door on a recruit? Yeah, it can. But again, I think we talk about this sometimes, right? And Brian brings it up all the time. One game does not really sway kids that heavily, but it can have an impact. I do agree with that. But I don't know in this instance if it's going to be like the difference between getting a kid and not getting a kid. Like, I don't know if I see that, Sean.
I agree with you. I think the full landscape as much because, kids, they make their – I forget the actual date in December, but we know. And about time, the season will be done before kids make their decisions. So I think the full landscape of the season is far more important than one game, than one singular game. By the performance against BYU was a really good performance. I think they can see the program moving forward and elevating. And I think they can start to see themselves in that environment, if that makes sense, Ryan. It's not so much about the game, because the game and the outcome matters, but seeing what stood out to me, I'm watching ND Media and their post-game stuff, and I'm watching the exuberance of Holden Stays and Tobias Merriweather. Now, we sit up here and talk about Tobias Merriweather, how he can be impacted, how he can be affected, and I see multiple clips of this kid, like, just on the sideline, totally into the game, smiles, jumping up and down with his fellow classmates. And it's like, okay, he's locked in. He might not, who wouldn't want to be on the field playing more? But he's bought in to the big picture. And so you love to see that, and kids, they can see that and see the exuberance and say, yeah, they're 3-2, but something's happening. Something's going on. I would love to be a part of that. And like at the end of the season, when they look at the total landscape, even with the flaws of the first 2 games, you'll have a pretty good picture that will be able to attract 23 kids that are making a final decision and even 24 kids. So yeah, it's bigger than just BYU and Vegas, but that's a very important piece to the overall puzzle in recruiting.
I agree. We had a couple super chats that I missed one early, and we just got another one. So let's go to Bailey Brad. Thank you for the super chat, sir. Said, do you think with all these offensive weapons coming in 2023 that next season is playoffs or bust? I think that every season should be playoffs or bust. If I'm being honest, like I do. I mean, again, man, we talk about standards all the time, Sean. Like Notre Dame should be competing for the playoffs every single year. That's what the standards should be. But I mean, Bailey, Brad, I would say this, Brad. I think that 2023, I think you have a really good team coming back potentially. Like I think there's going to be a lot of players back. I think the 2023 recruits coming in, if a couple of them make an impact, I think you should have a really good team in 2023. But I think that to answer your question, every year is playoffs or bust for me. It is. And
it is in a sense for the fan base and for the program. But I think this year is different. And I think when that moment was lost after the Marshall game, realistically, if they run the table, I mean, they'll have 2 top 10 wins in November. So, I mean, if everything goes right, it's still an outside chance, even with that Marshall loss and the performance they put up against Ohio State, when Ohio State is just running like a bull in a china shop through the Big Ten. Like their wide receivers are still running around on Michigan State. So when you look at that landscape, I just don't think you look at Michael Mayer and the way he's playing as a captain. It's not a playoff or bust mentality for him. Like, and maybe he had to make an adjustment, but it's like, yeah, you want to make him, Foskey, all of those guys came back to go to the playoff. So now they're faced with the adversity of, does my mind go to the NFL and I play selfishly, or do I buy in to what Marcus Freeman is asking of us? And I think you're seeing that it's bigger than just the season just being over. No, they're locked in, and you have to be locked in for the team to continue to get better the way they have over the previous 3 weeks.
Sean, I saw a conversation in the chat about Michael Mayer. I missed where the first starting point happened. Someone basically was asking, though, how long will you have Michael Mayer? Look, this is what I'll say, and then I want to bring up a chat here that just I want to correct something about it. So Michael Mayer, I think, is going to play the whole season, right? If they make it to a bowl game that is like one of the lower end bowl games, it's not a playoff game, right? I imagine he might be a kid that says, like, I'm going to forego the bowl game because, like, what does he have to gain in that situation, right? But if Michael Mayer, if they do make a playoff run, let's say, or whatever it is, then I think he'll play. But my thought process is I think that we'll see him for a full regular season, barring injury. That's what I think. So also wanted to bring this up.
If he actually played in the bowl game, I wouldn't be shocked.
I wouldn't be shocked either just because of who he is. I would advise against it if I was close to him. But yes. I agree.
Of course.
But I wanted to bring this question up because it's just there's something incorrect in here from Ed3 who said Mayer needs to play every game he can. He's got to compete with Brock Bowers for first round draft status. Teams don't normally take tight ends in the first round. They might not take more than one. Just wanted to correct this because Brock Bowers will not be in the 2023 NFL draft because he is only a sophomore. He's a true sophomore. You have to be 3 years out of high school. So Michael Mayer is the number 1 tight end in the 2023 class. Brock Bowers is not a part of the class. So just wanted to correct that. Little notes. I'm an NFL draft guy at Roots, so I had to bring that up. Sorry. All right, and we're going to go here now. Do we have any updates from Irish Mojo 25? Do we have any updates on Tishawn Lyons? The only thing we've heard at this point, Irish Mojo, is, and I reported this a couple weeks ago, the end of October is what he has kind of always had in his books as far as making a decision. I don't anticipate any more visits happening. So I think Notre Dame's in a good spot. But, again, we have a few weeks here. there's a possibility it goes into November, but like I find it unlikely that it goes into November. I think this is probably a end of October situation. But last time I talked to Tayshaun, he also did say that if he wakes up one day and it's just easy decision for him, he'll make the decision and he won't draw it out, right? So I think end of October is realistic. Could it go into November? It's possible, but I do think he wants to get this over with. I do. So that's kind of the update that we have with Tayshaun Lance. Not much there, but I do expect a decision being made within the next month or so. So, yeah. All right, we're going to go to this one, Sean, from Jonathan Gabrick. I want you to talk about this. We just talked about running backs a little bit. If they get Love, Jeremiah Love, that's going to be probably a top 3 running back room in the country. He was talking about the 2023 season. Let's highlight it, Sean.
Top 5 for sure.
Let's set the table here. Ready? So in 2023, you could have back Chris Tyree. You could have back Audric Estime. You could have back Logan Diggs. You'll have Jadarian Price coming back from injury. Jabron Payne will be a part of this group. Then you'll have Jeremiah Love potentially if he commits, and Jaden Lamar. So it's pretty good, man. It's pretty good.
Yes. Travion is going to the draft, right? In your estimation, if you just had to think about what Travion Henderson is going to do at the end of this year, you would pretty much think he would just go, right?
Well, he's only a sophomore as well, so he can't declare.
I don't know why I thought this. Oh, you're right. He was a true freshman last year. Well, that changes everything because their superstar freshman got hurt at the beginning of the year, so he'll be back. Mayan Williams. I think, honestly, it still will be a battle. Alabama's going to be number 1.
I wouldn't be surprised. Can I say this? I wouldn't be surprised if Mayan Williams enters the draft. Just saying. It's no inside information, but he's a redshirt sophomore. Yeah. He's having a really good season. He might ride the momentum. Just wanted to throw that out there. Yep.
You're right. But Alabama's going to be number 1. Running back room next year. It might not even be close. I'm going to keep it. The 2 guys they have coming in, the 2 guys they have stay. That's going to be pretty good. That's going to be pretty good. But Notre Dame, I can see Notre Dame being top 3. I mean, we have to do some more digging and really look at who's going to be coming, and then transfers and all of that stuff. Coming in and out of programs, that's going to make an impact. But
sure,
by all means, it definitely will be one of the best. Who's going to be the happiest positional coach next year? Ryan, that's is it going to be Chancey Stuckey or Dalen McCullough?
I think it's Dalen because you're going to have 3 proven commodities potentially coming back, right? Tyree can play if he comes back. Audric Estime can play. Logan Diggs, as long as he comes back, can play. You have 3 proven commodities. Not even counting the fact, and we put this Brian put this on as an intel piece on the board back in the summer. Jadarian Price had a chance to play a lot of football this year, man. Having him come back, if he comes back healthy from the Achilles, you get a Jeremiah Love coming in, you get a Jade Lamar, you still have Jabron Payne. That is a stupidly talented running back room, man. It really is. So, he's I mean, because you'll have a lot of talent in the wide receiver room, but I don't think you'll have as many proven commodities as you have in the running back room. That's my separator, in my opinion.
And if we're going to add, Harry probably is going to be, Harry as always has a little grumpiness to him, but Harry's going to be pretty excited too. With those 2 tackles coming back, I know I would be excited.
So a sleeper one. Someone just put Mike Mickens in the chat, which is interesting, Sean, because imagine if Cam Hart does go back. It's no guarantee, but imagine if he does go back. Right. You have Benjamin Morrison, you have Jaden Mickey, you have Clarence Lewis, you have the 2022 or 2021 class, and then you have Micah Bell and Christian Gray coming in too. Man, that's pretty good.
He's going to love his class, his group as well. Yeah, I agree with that. That's those might be the 3 happiest, right?
Yeah, that might be. I mean, defensive line wise, I feel like you'll always be happy. Linebackers has talent, but proven commodities in all 3 of those rooms. I think you're get more excited with, right? as a football junkie, I am excited to think about potential of the second year for Blake Fisher and Joe Alt with Harry Heastan. Like, that's one where I just can't wait to see it, man. I can't wait to see it.
Somebody's pointing out Gerard Parker in the tight end room. Yeah, he's going to be happy because the guys he has now as freshmen are really good.
Sure.
But he's losing. Boy, he's losing one.
He's losing one. Yeah, Jared Parker's losing one.
Yeah.
Yep. He is. He is losing one. But, yeah. Yep. It's exciting, though, man. A lot of talent coming back to Notre Dame next year. The talent is not going to be an issue. Talent is not going to be an issue. Question for Robert Bishop. Ryan, do you have a player comp for Jeremiah Love? Sean, I want to hear one from you for this because me and Brian have actually talked about this before. I kind of see a little Josh Adams as a running back in him. Brian saw a little CJ Procise with his versatility. Yeah, because I think Jeremiah is a one-cut kind of high-legged kid that like hits top gear and he's gone type, right? Yeah. But I do agree with Brian's comp with CJ Procise in the fact that he's more flexible and a little quicker than a Josh Adams was. But I didn't know if you had any comps for Jeremiah Love that popped out to you.
How my comp with I was about to say something, then I stopped myself because I was like, yo, I don't know. He reminds me of he's a Tony Pollard type to me.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
He's a Tony Pollard type to me. Like
run some jets.
Big hit, yeah. Shifty, downhill, can make a cut. But like you said, once he gets in the open, that's all she wrote. So I was thinking more along the lines of Tony Pollard initially when I thought about that. But then thinking about CJ and, your comp, I'm like, okay, I can actually see both of those.
And we just had a follow-up from Robert Bush that said, is he as big as Josh Adams, though? I mean, right now he's 6'1", 195, and I think he could be 215, 220 pretty easily. Like, yeah. I mean, so is he as big as Josh now? No. I mean, he's not as tall as Josh. Josh was like 6'1.5" and long-legged, right? Like Josh was a long running back. So it's not a perfect comp. I guess CJ Procise body type makes a little more sense. But, yeah, he's a little high-legged, though. He's a little high-legged. All right. Sean, let's go to this one. A lot of great questions today, man. Really is. This question from Will E. Does Notre Dame have the money to be competitive while recruiting? Look at what A&M is doing. Sean, I wanted to bring this one up because we just talked about Jeremiah Love, right?
That's funny. That last part is funny.
Yes. Yes. Look at what A&M is doing. Well, so I'll say this, ready? There's going to be some players where money means more than just about everything, right? And the money that an A&M or an Oregon or whoever could throw at them is going to be a difference maker, a decider, right? But we already talked about Jeremiah Love, who I will tell you is a big, Texas A&M is a big player for him, right? And has been a big player for him. And we think that he's still leaning towards Notre Dame. So for some players, it could be a difference maker. For some, it isn't as much, right? And we'll have more in depth about that in the future, but for some, it just isn't. It really depends on who you are, where you come from, what your family's like. Like, there's a lot of different factors that come into the NIL side of the conversation for me. And then also, Sean, I know what you're laughing about is that, yes, A&M's giving money out, right? They're doing all that stuff, but they're not a good football team. Like, they're not very successful on the fields, right? And I mean, I know they took Alabama to the wire, but like they are just an 8-4 team every single year. Like, what is that talent giving them? Like, where's that taking them? I guess is my question, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, but yeah, that's just my thoughts.
No, you hit the nail on the head. That last part, just look at what are they doing? I'm confused. What are they doing? Because they don't do a darn thing with the talent they get. So, what are they doing exactly?
Right. Yeah, man. It's my point, man. It's my point. So it's
that's funny.
Yeah, it's really funny. It's really funny. And I look forward to seeing if there is ever a change with Jimbo or if there's another down year. I want to see if they maintain that 2022 recruiting class, the greatest in history. We'll see. Here's a comp, Sean. Jonathan Gabrick said, and this was referring to Brandon Hillman when we were talking about him earlier in the podcast. He said he has some Jabril Peppers comp, in my opinion, can be used on both sides of the ball. That's interesting, Sean, because Jabril was the same thing, man. He could play a little wildcat quarterback. He could play wide receiver in college. He started as a corner at Michigan early in his career, ends up as a safety. I don't quite think that Brandon Hillman's quite as athletic as a Jabril Peppers, but versatility-wise, could do a lot of the same things. I don't hate it. I don't hate that comp.
No, I don't hate that comp at all. Man, we thought at the time Jabril was supposed to be like the next Charles Woodson when he got to Michigan. I don't think he had the same explosiveness or speed, but he was a good player. Look, he was a pretty good player at Michigan. I'm not shortchanging the kid.
Yep.
At all, but if Hillman,
he's turned into a solid safety in the NFL. Like he's not special. He's a good player.
Yeah, he's a good player. But heck, if Hillman performs at the same level as Jabril Peppers did in Michigan,
well, yeah. Well, he's never gonna be the returner that Jabril was, right? But like defensively, as like that hard hitting downhill safety with some range, cool. I'm there. I mean, wouldn't you have loved? I mean, honestly though, wouldn't you have loved to see Jabril Peppers with how he played at Michigan, especially his last year? Wouldn't you have loved to see him as the rover in Notre Dame system?
Absolutely.
Man. Woo. Absolutely. A little bit of a big nickel, but like, sure.
Yep.
Next question is Samuel from Adam Blair. Is Samuel Mpemba still visiting for Clemson? As far as we know, Adam, we haven't heard anything different. We haven't heard a cancellation. So as of now, we still expect Samuel Mpemba to be on campus. Don't feel great about where Notre Dame is with Samuel Mpemba. That's a different conversation, but he's expected to be on campus. We'll see. All right, Sean. What's happening with cornerback Ellis Robinson the fourth? This is from Brian, New York. Brian, from everything I've heard, like I just don't know if there's much interest on Ellis's part at this point, right? So like that's just kind of where it is. Notre Dame has a very talented cornerback group that they're eyeing up, right? The likes of Caleb Beasley, Emilio Agard, Eli Bowen. There's a lot of really talented corners in the class, Mike Matthews. But as of right now, I just don't think that there's any traction there because I don't think Ellis is interested, if we're being honest, right? Some guys are just not going to be interested. It's not a good fit for them. So it's where we are. Sean, going to go to you and start this one. Milton fan said, hey, Ryan, Sean, I'm worried of losing some of the wide receivers to transfer due to their lack of game time looks they are getting. Should we be worried, and why aren't they passing to the wide receivers? We talked about the wide receivers a bunch, Sean. I guess the question I'll kick to you, should we be worried about Notre Dame losing players at wide receiver with what we are seeing from a production level perspective?
I mean, it's Notre Dame. That's been an issue for the past 5 years. Notre Dame losing wide receivers via transfer. And the more talent you add to the room, that's just part of the game now. Guys are going to transfer, trying to get on the field and get their reps. So, yeah, I'm sure we'll continue to see wide receivers make business decisions at Notre Dame. The thing about Notre Dame is most of those decisions won't come until year 3 or 4. Because if you're going to commit to Notre Dame out of high school, you're not leaving until you get that degree.
Yep.
Or at least until you're on track to receive that degree. And you can take classes online, but you want that degree. So, yeah.
Yep. This is interesting. Sorry, go ahead. No, you continue.
Yeah, as far as why they aren't passing to the wide receivers, like I think we talked about that.
Yeah, we did.
It's a combination of a lot of things, and there's really no blame, Ryan. When I really think about it, just going back to how things started out with the transition from Buckner to Pine and the Cal game, if you're trying to build confidence and build up to a certain point, there's only so many rooms you can have, right? Like you lay the foundation on the first level, you have this many rooms, and then on the second level, you can add more rooms. And as you build and build, you can add more things. And maybe, now we saw the offense slowly build. We saw Michael Mayer have a breakout game, And maybe now we'll see, in the next 2 or 3 weeks, the wide receivers, have a breakout game collectively, because that's just building from week to week.
100%. 100%. I wanted to bring up this comp from Jay. I like Sean. He said, I hope Love turns out to be Alvin Kamara or Darren McFadden. I like the Darren McFadden thing, man. That's interesting. Jay, I might steal that, sir. I might steal that.
Who was the other kid with him? Was that Ronnie Brown that was with McFadden?
No, that was Cadillac Williams and Ronnie Brown. Williams.
Yes.
You're thinking of Felix Jones that was with Darren McFadden.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Good call.
Yes. He's Felix both first round picks, one by the Dallas Cowboys. Of course, McFadden got drafted by the Raiders. So yeah. Question from Jason Sexton. Ryan, could you see Hillman thrown in as a wildcat option? Sure. I mean, I don't know how open the staff would be to a wildcat quarterback, but Brendan Hillman can certainly do some stuff with the ball in his hand. So sure.
Yeah.
No doubt. All right, let's get through a few more of these. With your chest said it's hard to say with your chest normally, right? Like you get that little twang, like with your chest. It's a lot of fun in St. Louis with all these kids that are Notre Dame recruits. Just wanted to pop that up there because I agree. Notre Dame is doing a nice job over the last 2 cycles getting into the into the city of St. Louis, into some of the premier programs there. So agree completely. Want to throw it up to We Are Not Marshall. It said, where do we stand with Sammy Brown? So I reported on this already. He was planning to most likely make the trip during the Clemson game. He has been to Notre Dame now twice in the past, and he's going to come back. Where are they with Sammy Brown? He's going to be a tough pull out of the South, if I'm being honest, right? Like he's right in Georgia's backyard. I do think that there is legitimate interest. I do think that he's a very academically oriented kid, the linebacker out of Jefferson High School in Georgia. But I would say Notre Dame has a little bit of an outside chance, but it's going to be a tough pull, if I'm being completely honest. But he is very receptive to Notre Dame, and he does like Notre Dame. So that's where you start, and get him back on campus is a big step. So we'll see. As of now, though, I would say that Notre Dame is definitely not the leader for Sammy Brown, but we will see how things trend. Going to go to this one now. Aeneas Williams with your chest just said, Sean, from Hannibal, Missouri, not too far away either. Yes, very talented running back in the 2024 class. You have him. You have Corey Smith out of the state of Wisconsin. That's a really talented player. Nate Palmer out of Texas. There's a nice running back group also in the 2024 class. Aeneas Williams Shaw was the one that he had 8 touchdowns 4 weeks ago. Whatever it was, just ridiculous stuff, man. Ridiculous stuff.
Yeah, I love Corey Smith's film.
Oh man. He would be a huge pull out of Wisconsin, man. Yes. Absolute huge pull out of Wisconsin. Sean, I know we talked about this before, but Keith Wakeland wants to know where we think that Tayshaun Lyons might fit into this wide receiver group. So why don't we start with you, man? I think that we've talked about it, but let's go a little more in depth. How do you feel about what's your thoughts just on Tayshaun Lyons and how he could potentially fit in the 2024 class, 2023 class, if Notre Dame's able to pull that one off?
The more I watch film, am I wrong saying he could be a John Mechie type?
That's interesting. I see Kevin Stefferson if we're going for a Notre Dame comp, but okay. John Mechie's interesting. It's interesting.
Because I'm thinking about the collective, right? And the closest thing to that was the wide receiver group we saw at one time at Alabama, right? Where you had Devontae Smith, you had Jalen Waddle, that was the speedster, and Mechie was the young guy coming in behind those guys. That was really good. Technician, fast technician. He could really do. He could do everything.
Yeah.
And when I look at Tayshaun, I think this kid can really play all over the field. He really can. He's not the guy. I think Braylon reminds me of. You know what? I would probably lean on you a little bit more, being a draft guy, to see who's the Devontae Smith type in that class. Just the speed, Just go out there because I know the high ceiling you have for Braylon.
Yeah. See, when I think of Devontae's like technician, right? Like just crazy route runner, releases. Like that's Jaden Greathouse to me, right? Like that's Jaden.
Okay.
And I think
Jalen Waddle was a speed guy, yeah.
Yeah, Jalen Waddle's a speed. Devontae Adams was like, I'm pretty sure he ran like 4.55 coming out of Fresno State. Like he wasn't a burner. He was just more like played fast because he was so technically refined, right? Like yeah. Jalen Waddle, I mean, I guess a Jalen Waddle type would be Dylan Edwards, right? Like with that dynamic speed, like just stop, start, like just dumb.
Jefferson is that's a good comp. That's a good comp. Did somebody ask a question if someone compared to Will Fuller? I can answer that now. No.
Oh yeah, someone said Rico Flores to Will Fuller. I don't see that. Nah. Rico looks faster than he did last season. He's a really talented player, but like Will Fuller was like, I know he wasn't as fast coming out of Roman Catholic. Like he got a lot faster during his Notre Dame career, but like, I just don't think they even play like each other. I don't know, but whatever. I miss
disrespect to Rico. It's just
no. Rico's going to be a good football player for Notre Dame. Not a disrespectful thing at all. We had a super chat here, Sean. I missed it earlier. My apologize to Scoob Man. Thank you for the super chat. With Mayer out, receivers get more looks next year. He was just adding on to the conversation that wide receivers will have to be trusted more moving forward. I don't disagree. Like you're going to have to supplement some of that production. Like it's not going to be. I love Eli Raridan, love Holden Stace, talented football players, right? But you can't expect them to be Michael Mayer next year, production-wise. Like that's unrealistic, right? So wide receivers will have to step up. You have to supplement some of those touches somewhere, for sure. Running backs too, catches some passes next year. Yeah, you've seen that already. So, Sean, I'm going to ask you this one: if Micah Bell and Dylan Edwards step to the line, who wins in a sprint? Woof!
If I'm going strictly by time that we've heard, I probably would lean Dylan Edwards.
Really? I think I would go Micah Bell.
But this is why I said that Texas speed is different.
Yeah.
It's just different.
This is one of those, Sean, where like you are nitpicking right now, right? It's like whoever wins this race is probably winning by a hair, if we're being honest, right? Like this will be one of those legendary stories that comes out.
Yes. Like the race they had in spring camp in 2024. Like this is the type of competitive stuff that will probably end up happening that we'll hear about years down the line.
Throw in Chris Tyree, throw in Peyton Bowen. I want to see the race, man. I want to see it. I think Peyton comes in last.
If you add Peyton Bowen to it, that's a totally different story.
100%. 100%. So yeah, I want to see. I would love to see that race. We'd love to see that race. So think of legend to your points. Think of legend. Boss and Domer said, any update on Jade Lamar? Jade Lamar was out in Vegas.
He's at the game in Vegas, Yep.
Had a really good time. Look, he's going to take visits. Something that we thought could happen, but weren't 100% sure, but it is going to happen. So we'll see. I don't have any reason to panic on it, but anytime a player's going to take visits, you have to watch, right? And observe. So we'll see. But I don't have any big update as far as like he's shutting down recruitment or anything like that. Like he's committed to Notre Dame. He's going to take visits. We'll see what happens. As of right now, I'm not worried, but things can change. Things cannot change. We'll see what happens.
I mean, let's be honest with what's happening. And I forgot, someone wrote a great article when he committed that there was so much uncertainty surrounding the Washington program that it kind of led to maybe expediting his commitment in the eyes of some local people and people that knew him. Because he's been a long time Husky fan growing up. And he's been honest about that. Washington has come out and had a really good start to the season.
Not the last two games, though. But yeah, keep going.
Yep. But I think that, kind of, and starting to believe and, in the program and, Caleb, the head coach out there, and what he might bring and what the program could look like. I mean, That's like your first love coming back around. It's like you never forget her. And so if he takes a visit, to Washington for a game or another local program in the Pac-12, it's like, heck, if he took a visit to UCLA, it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah.
The way that offense is looking. So, no, it wouldn't shock me at all. Because at heart, kids like, dude, we just talked to Bertrand Berry, and he said, look, my eyes were fixated on Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And until I watched Notre Dame manhandle them, I was like, yo, okay. So
right. It's perspective right there, man. It's perspective.
Absolutely.
We're not talking about kids that just grew up Notre Dame fans, right? Like these are kids that are making a decision for themselves. It's not an allegiance here. It's a decision. Right. So, Sean, this is an interesting one that I want to pull up. Ben Tarnowski said, Tommy Rees needs to make 3 phone calls this offseason. 1 to Cade McNamara.
No.
1 to Tanner McKee. And 1 to Walker Howard. What do y'all think?
No to all 3.
To all 3? Yeah. Okay.
There will be better options. Cade McNamara is Drew Pine. We already got Cade McNamara. In my opinion.
I would not be opposed to Tanner McKee if he became available, if I'm being honest. And Walker Howard to a degree. You
know what? I kind of
definitely not Cade McNamara though. We're on 100% on the same page with that one.
Heck no. Tanner McKee, I watched him. I was actually impressed with him and the tight end at the end of last year when they played Notre Dame.
Benjamin Yorisak.
Yeah, I was like, okay, these 2 kids. And then I watched Tanner McKee late in the game against Oregon State this past weekend, and I was like, he's all right.
He's a statue. But in Tommy Rees's offense, I think he might be a pretty solid player. Walker Howard's interesting.
He could be.
If that happens, but yeah.
Now, you just said that.
What?
If Tanner McKee ends up being, based upon what you said, putting him in this offense.
Yeah.
If he's Jack Cohn with this offensive line, okay. Now we're talking okay, I'm in on that.
Yeah.
I'm in on that. Because if Jack Cohn was able to play behind this offensive line this year, he might have thrown for like 4,500 easy.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah. I mean, look, so like my takeaways from these are Cade McNamara, I'm good, man. Like he chose not to, he decided to go against Notre Dame and there's limitations to him as a quarterback. Like I don't need it. I don't need that. Tanner McKee's interesting, bigger kid, stronger arm than what you have on the roster for the most part. Again, not going to bring any much of a running threat to your team, but could he be a better version of Jack Cohn? It's possible. It's very possible. I think he has talent. Walker Howard's a young guy that I would take if it made sense. But the guy that I keep coming back to, Sean, is if Jeff Sims from Georgia Tech goes into the portal.
Absolutely.
That's my guy, man. It's my guy. Not to just come in and just you're the starter, right? But to come and compete. Yes, 100%. 100%. That's my guy. I know Brian and I think Brian Smith and Brian Driscoll have both talked about like, hey, if Tyler Van Dyke ever became, available, like maybe. I'm not as much on that one, but
no. He's so up and down to me, But like you said, certain quarterbacks, Tommy's really good with certain type of quarterback, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You give Tommy a type, his offense, with this offensive line, there's no excuse for a Notre Dame quarterback whomever starts behind this offensive line next year. There's no excuse for them not to throw for 3,500 minimum.
I agree.
Minimum. That's the baseline. Minimum.
So Jay Henry just put this in the chat. So Jeff Sims would be nice, but I worry Tommy would ruin him. Jay, Georgia Tech's already ruining Jeff Sims, man. We can ruin him a little more. Just kidding, obviously, Jay. But
they woke up the last 2 weeks, right?
2 straight wins since firing Jeff Collins. Yeah. It's interesting. It's weird. It's very, very strange, but very talented player, man. I would love to see him in a good situation. That's all I just want to see with Jeff Sims. That's what I want to see. All right. Thank you for the question, though. And Jay, thank you for the comments. We have Zach Martin says, Ryan Sean, who's the best player you ever played against? That's interesting.
Any sport?
Any sport, yeah. That's an interesting question. Played against. So I didn't play against anybody that was crazy. Mm-hmm. I played against Karan Pratt, that played at Rutgers, that played in the NFL for a few years with the Eagles. Was more of a practice squad guy, but yeah, that's the best I played against. I coached against Jonathan Taylor when he was at Salem. I coached against Kelvin Harmon when he was at Palmyra High School and he went to NC State and got drafted as well. So there's a couple of guys that I've coached against, but the best I probably played against was Karan Pratt when he was at Palmyra.
It's a trio for me. It would be Cliff Floyd.
Oh, baseball player? Cliff Floyd?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cliff Floyd, this kid named Sean Livesley, who got drafted in the 3rd round by the Astros, who played at Simeon, and then Antoine Walker on the basketball court.
Oh, that Antoine Walker. That went to Kentucky.
He was a freshman in my senior year.
Dude, he was nasty, man. He was like 6'8", too. He's huge.
I'll never forget, because, he was like, oh, man, this kid, number 1 freshman in the country, da-da-da. Big time. At that time, he was still growing. So at that time, he probably was legit like 6'6". But he was a big kid, stocky kid. I remember we played them in the first half. They were ranked, and I think we were down 4. Now, this is funny because we played them in a Thanksgiving tournament, and at halftime, Donovan McNabb walked in with the Illinois State Championship trophy because they had just won the state championship earlier in the day. So they walked into halftime with the trophy. Everybody went crazy, and then they came out second half and kind of blew us out. But I left that game thinking like, he's all right. And then the next thing you know, he turns into Antoine Walker. So, yeah, I'll probably choose Antoine Walker.
Man, Sean, funny story real quick. Ready? I have a friend. His name is Larry. He played on the high school basketball team. Where I went to high school, football, we were pretty decent. Track, we were really good. Basketball, we were not good at all. I didn't play. Basketball team was bad, though. Like, they lost, I think almost every game for the 2-year stretch. They were terrible. My buddy played. He was like a 5'7" guard, right? Like a shooting guard, too. Not a point guard, shooting guard, 5'7". Desmond Hubert played at North Carolina, was more of a rotational player at North Carolina.
Yeah.
But he played at a Group 1 school here in New Jersey at New Egypt, 6'9". He dunked on my boy and made the highlight tape, and it still is something that I play until this day. So, yes, fantastic.
Nice.
Fantastic. Yes. Oh, man. Good times. Good times. Going to roll through a couple of these, and I have one question we want to knock out. Jeff Fluke asks if I can do a dream class article for 2024. Absolutely, Jeff. Just because you asked nicely, sir. Could do that for you. Ben Tarnowski asked, did Foskey's stock drop? Any possibility he could come back? Second part, no, I doubt it. I doubt that Isaiah Foskey's back for the 2023 season. Did his stock drop? No, I wouldn't say that, Ben. I would say that Isaiah Foskey hasn't risen, right? Like, he was viewed as a late first-round type of player going into the season. I thought that he could vault himself into being a high first-round pick. I don't think that that's happened, but I still think he's in the first-round conversation based on the intel piece that I put out on irishbreakdown.com, boards.irishbreakdown.com to be exact. Last question, Sean, that we'll get to here. Might have to talk through this one for a minute. Lucas Desin says, Ryan and Sean, do you know for certain which commits are enrolling early? So let's work through the class real quick, okay? Mm-hmm. If Jeremiah Love is in the class, he will be enrolled early. I know that one. Jaden Lamar, yes, will be enrolled early. Wide receivers wise, Jaden Greathouse is planning to enroll early. Yes. Braylon James, yes. Rico Flores, most likely. Dylan Edwards, I'm not sure. Cooper Flanagan, most likely. Offensive line wise, the only guys I'm sure about are Sullivan Absher and Sam Pendleton. I'm not sure if Charles Jagasaw is, Sean. I don't know if you know that one.
Yes.
He is. Okay.
He's a yes.
Okay, so Charles is good.
Yes.
I've not talked to Joe Otting. I do not know if that one is sure going to happen.
Drake Bowen is a yes.
Drake Bowen's a yes. Okay, Preston Zinter is a most likely. Still being determined, I think, that one. Defensive line-wise, not sure about Boubacar. Devin Houston, I'm not sure about either. Brendan Vernon, not sure.
I think Brennan is.
He might be. I
can't. Yeah, I think Brennan I know this dude is like the most, you talking about shut everything down. Like once he committed, he has shut everything down. It's like, no need to talk. I'm committed. No need to say anything. I'm sending in my letter, and there's an opportunity that he will be coming in early. Maybe.
There you go. And all right, so then so then you said Drake Bowen, Jane Osbury will be in there. I believe last time I talked to him, he'll be enrolled early. Christian Gray?
It's still up in the air.
Still up in the air. Okay. Micah Bell, I believe, will be, because that kid is a genius. So he'll probably be enrolled early, to my knowledge. I know Adon Schuler is going to be the first player ever in his school's history to graduate early. So he will be an early enrollee, Adon Schuler for sure. Not sure about Peyton Bowen or Ben Minich, but yeah. So that's a little bit of an insight there. Great question, Lucas.
That's amazing. I feel like I need to stand and give him a round of applause. That's in the history of the school.
Don. Yeah. When I had Don Schuler on the show, when I had him on the show, Sean, he told me that his son will be the first ever in Irvington High School history to graduate early from high school. So yes, shout out to Adon, man. Fantastic stuff. Very impressive stuff.
I saw someone in the chat say something. I think there's something to that. I didn't want to go into it. I think there is a problem with Mentor and the way they handle things, but there is a desire.
Yes.
For the player to enroll early. So,
and I know someone just said Ryan, great first name, by the way, said we need the pinned on the board early enrollments. I got you, sir. I got you. We'll make that happen. Sean, great mailbag.
How do you block somebody from graduating early?
It's stupid. It's dumb. It is dumb. Wanted to throw out this quote, this comment from Jojo Pineda. Just said, "Great show, guys. Love having Bertrand Berry on, and my former and any former greats, and getting an insight like Sean and Ryan hosted him. Appreciate you, Jojo. Appreciate everyone for taking the time to join the show today. This is going to conclude the mailbag portion of today's recruiting hour. If you please, before you leave, go back and listen to our interview with Bertram Berry. Go back and listen to our recruiting talk, the second segment. And if you missed part of the mailbag, go back and listen to that. Please like, share, hit that notification bell. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, any podcast platform you use. 5-star reviews are very much appreciated. Go to boards.irishbreakdown.com. Sign up for the message board. We have intel that we dropped earlier today about some of the visitors for the Irish this past weekend for the Shamrock Series game. We'll also have throwing more visitors on the list here soon for the Stanford game coming up. From Sean, I am Ryan. Thank you all again for joining the Recruiting Hour, a part of the Irish Breakdown podcast.